The flowers arrived at 11:43 on Mother's Day, when I had already moved my phone from the kitchen counter to the windowsill and back 6 times. They were expensive flowers, the kind that came in a glass vase heavy enough to stop a door, pink roses, white lilies, little green things that looked like they'd been clipped from an expensive hedge. The delivery man held them in front of his chest and said, "Somebody loves you." "That remains to be seen," I said. He laughed because he thought I was joking. The card was tucked into a plastic fork between 2 roses. Rachel's handwriting leaned uphill, rushed but unmistakable. "Happy Mother's Day." "I love you. Please don't call today." I read it twice. Then I checked the envelope as if there might be another card saying, "Just kidding, call me immediately." There wasn't. Every Mother's Day for 21 years, my daughter had called me at 9 in the morning. That year, she sent enough flowers to fill a funeral parlor and paid extra to make sure I stayed silent. The delivery man was still on my porch, shifting his weight. "Do you need me to bring those inside?" he asked. "No, thank you. You sure? They're pretty heavy. I gave birth to the person who sent them. I can manage the vase." His smile faltered. "Happy Mother's Day, ma'am. You too." I carried the flowers inside and immediately sloshed water down the front of my blouse. That was the first thing Rachel's bouquet did for me. I set it in the middle of the kitchen table and went upstairs to change. I chose a blue shirt she had given me 2 Christmases earlier, then took it off because it felt like surrender. I put on a green one instead. At 68, I had apparently reached the age where changing a blouse counted as taking a position. My phone remained quiet. 9 o'clock had always been ours. When Rachel first left home, she would call from whatever apartment, dorm room, or borrowed couch she was living in and say, "Tell me the rain story." The rain story was not much of a story. She had been born on a Sunday in May while rain hammered the hospital windows. Martin had forgotten my overnight bag in the hallway at home and returned with the wrong suitcase. So I spent the first night of motherhood wearing his college sweatshirt and a pair of socks with golf clubs on them. At some point, the storm knocked out the lights for 7 minutes. Rachel came into the world red-faced and furious in the dim glow of emergency lamps. "You were born complaining," I always told her. I had standards, she would say. Some years she called at 8:57, some years at 9:20. Once, after a party in Nashville, she called at noon and claimed 9 o'clock was more of a spiritual deadline. But she called. That morning, I had made coffee at 8:30 and carried it to the table. At 8:50, I opened the blinds. At 9:05, I decided she was sleeping late. At 9:30, I put bread in the toaster and burned it while checking whether my ringer was on. At 10, I typed, "Good morning, sweetheart." I deleted it. At 10:15, I typed, "Are you all right?" I deleted that too. At 11, I called my younger sister Judith, who answered over the sound of silverware and people talking. "Happy Mother's Day," she said. "Did Rachel spoil you rotten?" "Not yet." "Well, the day is young." "Where are you?" "Brunch." "I told you about it." "You told me you might go out. In my family, might go out means I'm already wearing lipstick. You know that." Somebody near her asked for the syrup. Judith said, "It's beside your elbow, Larry," in the tone of a woman who had spent 34 years pointing out objects beside Larry's elbow. "Did Rachel mention any plans to you?" I asked. There was a pause, small but polished. "What kind of plans?" "Mother's Day plans. I assume she has some." "With whom?" "You'll have to ask Rachel." That sentence sat between us. "Do you know something?" I said. "I know I'm at a crowded restaurant and Larry is about to pour syrup into his coffee. I thought it was cream. It is not cream." "Judith, I don't know anything worth ruining your morning over. My morning is sitting in front of cold toast waiting for a phone call." She lowered her voice. "Don't start building a whole tragedy before noon. Rachel may be busy." "Busy doing what?" "Living, hosting, being married. The things people do." I looked at the clock. "You make her sound like a pioneer woman." Larry said something in the background. "No, don't drink it," Judith told him. Then to me, "Call me later." The flowers arrived less than 40 minutes after we hung up. I took the card out of its plastic holder and carried it into the living room. Then I carried it back. I placed it face down. But that felt theatrical, so I turned it over. Please don't call today. Not, I'll explain later. Not, I'm overwhelmed. Not even, can we talk tomorrow? It had the crisp efficiency of a notice taped to a restroom door. I wondered whether Rachel was sick. Then I wondered whether Nate was sick. Then I wondered whether they were fighting and she didn't want me pulled into it. That possibility lasted almost 2 minutes before I remembered that Rachel had never shown the slightest resistance to pulling me into a fight with Nate. During their last argument, she had called while I was brushing my teeth and talked for 40 minutes about the way he loaded the dishwasher. He puts bowls on the bottom rack, she had said. Is that grounds for divorce now? It shows a lack of systems thinking. So does calling your mother at 11:30 at night about bowls. She hung up on me, then sent a photograph of the dishwasher as evidence. Nate was a patient man, but he had the aggravating patience of someone who believed remaining calm automatically made him right. He could say something cutting in the voice of a meditation instructor. Rachel, meanwhile, could turn the purchase of a lamp into a congressional hearing. They loved each other. They also treated me like the complaint department. If trouble between them had caused the card, I would have understood. I would not have liked it, but I would have understood. What I couldn't understand was the word today, as if she had examined all 24 hours of Mother's Day and decided my voice was the one thing that must be kept out of them. I tried watching television. Every other commercial featured an adult daughter placing a sweater around her silver-haired mother's shoulders. The mothers were always delighted by sweaters. None of them seemed to say, "Honey, this is acrylic and I live in Virginia." I switched to a home renovation show, but the couple knocked down a wall and found another wall behind it, which felt too pointed. At 1, I made a grilled cheese sandwich. At 1:30, I threw half of it away. At 2, Marion Becker called. Marion and I had worked together for 14 years at the county library, where she had been responsible for adult programming and I had managed circulation. She believed every problem could be improved by either strong coffee or an unnecessarily personal question. "Did you get the flowers?" she asked. "How do you know about the flowers?" "I don't. It's Mother's Day. Flowers were a reasonable guess." "Yes, I got flowers." And they are flowers. That bad?" "They're beautiful." "Oh, terrible." I smiled despite myself. "What are you doing?" "Trying to convince myself that cleaning the refrigerator is a choice and not a cry for help. Come over. I have lemon cake. I thought you were going to your cousin's." She canceled. Her boyfriend surprised her with a mountain cabin. At our age, a surprise mountain cabin sounds like an orthopedic emergency. I know. "Come save me from eating this entire cake." I almost said yes. Then I pictured Rachel calling while I was out. I pictured having to explain that I had missed her because I was eating cake with Marion. That was ridiculous. Rachel had specifically told me not to call. She had not ordered me to remain beside the phone. "I think I'll stay home," I said. Marion was quiet. "Are you waiting for Rachel?" "No. You answered too fast." "I'm tired." "Fine, be tired here. I'll call you tomorrow. You can call me today. I'm not exclusive." After we hung up, I resented her for being right, and myself for making it easy. At 3, I took the bouquet apart. I told myself the lilies were too fragrant, but really I could not stand the arrangement looking so composed. I put the roses in a blue pitcher, the lilies in the laundry room, and the little green hedge pieces in the trash. Then I retrieved the green pieces because throwing away paid-for greenery seemed wasteful. I cut the stems, changed the water, and made 3 smaller arrangements, all while pretending I was not dismantling an argument Rachel had delivered to my door. At 4:20, a message appeared. "Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Hope you're relaxing. Love you." It was from Nate. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim. "Thank you," I wrote. "Hope you're having a nice day." 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. "We are. Busy over here." I waited. Nothing else came. Over here. Rachel and Nate lived 12 minutes away in a 2-story house with dark green shutters and a kitchen island large enough to land a small aircraft. I had helped them choose the shutters. I had also spent an entire Saturday unpacking that kitchen while Rachel stood in the middle of it, holding a wooden spoon and saying she didn't know where anything should go. I pictured the house now. Rachel lighting the candles she saved for company, Nate opening wine, someone occupying the chair Rachel usually pulled out for me. I hated myself for picturing it. There were dozens of innocent explanations. Nate's mother, Barbara, might be there. That would make sense. Barbara lived an hour away and had undergone knee surgery the previous winter. Perhaps Rachel was doing something special for her. Perhaps Barbara had asked for a quiet day. No, Barbara liked me. Or at least she liked me well enough to complain about restaurant portions. At 6, I poured a glass of wine. At 6:10, I poured it back into the bottle because I did not want to be drinking when Rachel finally called. At 6:15, I poured it out again because that too was ridiculous. The call never came. At 8:37, my phone chimed while I was upstairs washing my face. I hurried down so quickly I missed the last step and caught myself against the banister. The message was from Rachel. Survived hosting. Exhausted. Call tomorrow? Beneath it was a photograph. For a moment, I noticed only the table. Rachel's good white dishes. Pale pink napkins folded beneath the forks, a centerpiece of peonies and eucalyptus, the silver candlesticks I had loaned her at Christmas and had not seen since. Then the people came into focus. Nate stood at the back with one hand on his mother's shoulder. Barbara sat to his right, smiling broadly. Rachel leaned over the center of the table, a wine glass raised. Beside her sat Martin, my former husband, wearing the navy sweater that made strangers trust him. And in my chair, because I knew it was my chair, the one nearest the kitchen, where Rachel always seated me so I could help, sat Celeste. She wore a cream-colored blouse and held one hand to her chest as if someone had just said something touching. In front of her was a small, wrapped gift. Rachel's other hand rested on her shoulder. I enlarged the photograph. I wish I could say I didn't. I enlarged it until the faces became soft squares of color. On the counter behind them stood a framed photograph from Rachel's wedding, the one where I was at the far end, half hidden behind Martin's shoulder. My phone rang. Judith. I let it ring 3 times before answering. You saw it, she said. You knew. I knew Martin was in town. And Celeste. Yes, and you knew Rachel was having them over. I suspected. You always suspect things with remarkable accuracy. Elaine, was I discussed? What? At any point did someone say, "What about Elaine?" Judith exhaled. I wasn't there. That isn't what I asked. I told Rachel this was a bad idea. You told her? Another silence. Less polished this time. I said it could be hurtful. Could be. I'm not defending her. No, you're conjugating. What does that mean? I don't know, it sounded good. To my surprise, Judith laughed. It came out once, sharp and unwilling. I laughed too, and then my throat closed so quickly I had to sit down. Oh, Elaine, she said. Don't. I'm sorry. Did she say why? She said Celeste has been feeling like she doesn't have a real place in the family. Martin wanted everyone together while they were in town, and Rachel thought. Judith stopped. What did Rachel think? That you would understand. I looked at the divided flowers. Roses on the table, lilies exiled beside the detergent, greenery rescued from the trash. Of course she did, I said. After we hung up, I placed Rachel's card in the kitchen drawer where I kept takeout menus, spare batteries, and instructions for appliances I no longer owned. I didn't tear it up. I didn't call her. I didn't reply to the photograph. At 9 the next morning, my doorbell rang. Rachel stood on the porch carrying 2 coffees and wearing the careful smile she used when she'd already decided how a conversation was supposed to end. I opened the door, but left the storm door closed between us. She lifted 1 cup. Peace offering? Behind me, the lilies filled the hallway with the sweet, unmistakable smell of something beautiful beginning to turn. "What kind?" I asked. Rachel glanced at the writing on the cup. "Oat milk latte. 1 pump vanilla. I meant peace." The smile tightened. "Can I come in?" I unlocked the storm door and stepped aside. She kissed the air near my cheek as she entered, then stopped in the hallway. "Wow, those lilies are strong." "They came that way." She handed me the coffee and carried hers into the kitchen. Rachel was 38, but there were mornings when she entered my house with the same ownership she'd had at 19, opening cabinets, moving the mail, assuming whatever had changed since her last visit was temporary. She looked at the roses in the blue pitcher. "You took the arrangement apart. The lilies were too strong. You could have called the florist. They would have replaced them." That seemed ungrateful. "You didn't like them? They're lovely." "Then why does it sound like I sent you a box of spiders?" I set the untouched coffee on the counter. "Did Nate know what you wrote on the card?" Rachel took a slow sip. "Good morning to you too." "Did he? He knew I was sending flowers." "That wasn't my question." "No. He didn't stand over my shoulder while I wrote the card." "Did he know you asked me not to call?" "I didn't ask you not to call forever, Mom. I asked for 1 day. You asked me not to call on Mother's Day." "Yes, because yesterday was complicated. You sent me a photograph. It didn't look complicated. It was incredibly complicated. Matching napkins usually are." Rachel placed her coffee on the table with a little more force than necessary. A drop jumped through the opening in the lid. "This is why I came over. I knew you'd take the picture the wrong way." "How was I meant to take it? As a nice picture from a nice day. Featuring my former husband, his wife, and a chair that apparently came open at the last minute. That is not your chair. I know it isn't legally my chair, Rachel." "Oh my God." She turned toward the window and pressed her fingertips to her forehead. That gesture had come from Martin. He did it whenever the woman speaking to him had become too unreasonable to face directly. I opened the drawer beside the refrigerator and took out a cloth. The card lay where I had put it, under a menu for a Thai restaurant that had closed the previous year. I shut the drawer before Rachel noticed it. "Your father was in town," I said. "Yes, you knew that before yesterday. He called us Saturday morning. It was last minute. And the dinner became brunch? It was always brunch. Judith knew. Judith knows everything. I swear she has informants at the state line. You told her enough." "I told her Dad and Celeste were visiting. Barbara was already coming, and she's always wanted to meet them. We had food for 4, then food for 6, and it just grew into 5. She looked at me. "What?" "There were 5 people in the photograph. There were 5 people at the table. So it didn't grow into 6. It grew into 5 and stopped before it reached me." Rachel crossed her arms. "I knew this would happen. That hurt more than it should have." "You knew I could count?" "I knew you'd make the entire day about who was sitting where instead of understanding the situation." "I would love to understand the situation. Would you?" "Yes." "Okay." She pulled out a chair, but she didn't sit. "Celeste has been having a hard time." I waited. "That's all you're going to say?" "I'm waiting for the hard time. You don't have to sound like that." "What does a sympathetic pause sound like?" "She and Dad had a bad experience over Easter with some of her family. They made comments about her never having had a family of her own, and then one of them made this whole speech about how being a stepmother doesn't make you a real mother. No one in this family has said that to her." "I know. That's not the point. It feels adjacent to the point. The point is, she was hurt. And she told me she's always felt like she was standing outside our family, waiting for permission to come in. I sat down because my knees had begun to feel unreliable, and I did not want Rachel to see me steady myself against the table. I have never asked you to keep her outside. No, but you don't exactly welcome her. I sat next to her at your wedding. Mom, you spoke to her twice. I was the mother of the bride. I spoke to the caterer twice. You know what I mean? I invited her to Thanksgiving 3 years ago, and you barely looked at her. She brought a sweet potato casserole after I specifically told her I had already made one. Rachel stared at me. That sounded worse out loud, I admitted. A little. She puts marshmallows on hers. That isn't a character flaw. It's not a recommendation. For half a second, Rachel's mouth twitched. That was how we had always escaped each other. One of us found the ridiculous edge, and the other stepped through it. I nearly smiled back. Then I remembered the card in the drawer. Rachel pulled out the chair across from me and sat. Yesterday wasn't designed to hurt you, she said more softly. I wanted Celeste to have one day where she didn't feel like the other woman. She is not the other woman. I know that. Your father and I were divorced before he met her. I know. Then why would I make her feel that way? You don't have to say anything, it's just there. The history, the tension. Whose tension? Everyone's. Was Barbara tense? That's not fair. Was Nate? Mom, was your father? He hates conflict. Your father hates noticing conflict. He's very comfortable when someone else is having it. Rachel leaned back. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. What? The little comments. The old grievances. Dad trying to be nice, you interpreting everything he says as an attack. Celeste getting quiet, me having to watch every word. So you invited them and told me not to call. I was trying to manage a difficult day. You managed me out of it. She looked toward the divided flowers as if hoping they might support her. I sent you a beautiful arrangement. You sent me hush money with lilies. That is so dramatic. I spent yesterday wondering whether you were ill. I texted you. At 4:20, I was cooking. You have a voice assistant in every room of your house. You could have told the refrigerator to text me. Rachel rubbed her temples. I'm sorry you worried. Not the same thing. What do you want me to say? I don't know yet. I'm saying I'm sorry. You're saying you're sorry I misunderstood the day correctly. Her face changed. Not much, but enough. Rachel had inherited Martin's ability to become cold without raising her voice. We wanted one peaceful meal, she said. And I prevent peace? You make things hard sometimes. The refrigerator motor came on behind me. I could hear a lawnmower 2 houses away and the faint clink of ice when Rachel picked up her coffee. What do I make hard? I asked. She sighed. You remember everything. I almost laughed. That's the accusation? You keep track. Who called? Who didn't? Whether Dad thanked you for something in 2009, whether Celeste brought the wrong casserole. That happened 3 years ago. See? I remembered it because we were just discussing it. You know what I mean. You keep a ledger. You sent me a card asking me not to call Rachel. I did not pull that out of a ledger. It was one day. It was Mother's Day. And you are my mother. Her voice sharpened. I thought you'd be the one person mature enough not to make it about yourself. Neither of us moved. Rachel's eyes widened slightly. She had heard herself. I watched her decide whether to take the sentence back. She didn't. Instead, she said, That came out wrong. No, I think it came out all the way. I mean, you're secure in your place. Celeste isn't. My place was home alone, being told not to call. You know you're important to me. Do I? You should. How? She stood so quickly the chair legs dragged against the floor. I am not going to defend our entire relationship because of one brunch. I haven't asked you to. Yes, you have. That's what this is. You want me to list everything you've ever done for me so you can tell me none of it is enough. I want you to tell me why my absence was necessary. I already did. No, you told me Celeste was sad. You haven't told me why comforting her required erasing me. Nobody erased you. You instructed me not to make a sound. That card was supposed to keep us from having this exact conversation while they were here. There it was. Not illness, not confusion, not a rushed explanation poorly expressed. She had known. I stood and picked up her coffee. You should go. Rachel blinked. Seriously? Yes. We haven't resolved anything. I think we have clarified quite a lot. She took the cup from my hand but didn't move toward the door. So now what? You freeze me out until I beg? I don't know what happens now. You always know. You always have a whole speech ready. Not today. That seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. She watched my face, perhaps looking for the mother who would soften first and make the room safe enough for her to leave without guilt. I walked to the front door. Rachel followed. Nate wants to have dinner this week. Tell him thank you. That means no. It means tell him thank you. She opened the storm door, then turned back. You weren't the only mother involved yesterday. No, I said. I was simply the only one asked to disappear. Her cheeks flushed. She left without answering. I carried both cups into the kitchen before remembering she had taken hers. For several seconds, I stood there with one coffee in my hands, absurdly confused by the missing weight. The latte had gone lukewarm. I drank it anyway. Rachel didn't call that afternoon, neither did Nate. At 7, she sent a message. I'm sorry today got heated. I hope after some space we can both see this wasn't meant as a rejection. I read it while eating scrambled eggs over the sink. There was something almost artistic in the way Rachel's apologies distributed responsibility. Today had gotten heated all by itself. Space would help both of us correct our vision. Rejection had apparently occurred without rejecting anyone. I typed 3 different answers and erased them all. Before bed, I moved the lilies out of the laundry room and onto the back porch. Their fragrance had seeped into the towels. Tuesday had been Rachel's day for years, though we had never named it that. She worked from home on Tuesdays, which meant she often called with a favor between meetings or appeared for lunch expecting soup. I kept the day loose. Hair appointments happened Wednesday, grocery shopping happened Monday. If Marion suggested a movie on Tuesday, I said I might be busy. At 9:12, my phone rang. I watched Rachel's name fill the screen. It stopped, then began again. On the 3rd call, I answered. Are you home? She asked. Yes. Thank God. The new dining chairs are being delivered between 10 and 2, and I have back-to-back meetings. Could you run over and wait for them? No mention of the porch, no mention of the card. Her voice was bright, hurried, confident in the old machinery. I looked at the clock, then at my purse hanging beside the door, ready because I had decided, only 20 minutes earlier, to ask Marion if the lemon cake was still available. I can't, I said. Silence. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not available. But you just said you're home. I did. Another silence. Longer this time. Mom, Rachel said, and the brightness was gone. Are you really going to do this? Do what? Punish me. I have plans. You just said you're home. People often begin plans from home. It's where we keep our shoes. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. Rachel lowered her voice, which meant she had entered the portion of the call where I was the unreasonable person, and she was trying not to alert the neighbors. The delivery company charges $180 if nobody's there. Then I'd make sure somebody's there. That somebody is you. It's Tuesday. It is. You're always free on Tuesdays. No, I have usually made myself free on Tuesdays. For me, yes. There are truths that sound unnecessarily cruel the first time they are spoken aloud. I heard the cruelty in that one and almost took it back. Rachel went quiet. I could picture her in the upstairs office, wearing the square glasses she didn't need except when she wanted to look serious on video calls. Behind her would be the white shelves I had helped her arrange. All the books grouped by color because apparently literacy was improved by gradients. Why didn't you tell me you had plans? She asked. Why would I? Because I rely on you. You called 48 minutes before the delivery window. They changed it. It was supposed to be this afternoon. That sounds frustrating. Oh, please don't use that customer service voice on me. I spent 26 years at the library. This is my real voice now. Can't Marion wait? I looked at my purse again. I had not called Marion yet. I had not put on lipstick or even brushed the back of my hair properly. The only plan I had made was the decision not to keep waiting. No, I said. Why not? Because I said she couldn't. That was not true, but it felt true enough to stand on. Rachel exhaled directly into the phone. Fine, I'll figure it out. All right, enjoy your cake. My grip tightened. How do you know about the cake? Judith told me Marion invited you over yesterday. Of course she had. Judith didn't so much gossip as redistribute information for what she believed was the public good. Goodbye, Rachel. You don't have to say it like that. How should I say it? She hung up. I turned off my phone before I could turn myself around. Marion lived in a brick ranch house with yellow shutters she despised but refused to repaint because, as she put it, then the shutters win. She opened the door wearing red reading glasses and a t-shirt that said, "I'm retired, go ask someone else." "You came," she said. "Is the cake gone?" "Half of it. You ate half a cake?" "I had help." She stepped aside, revealing a fork on a plate beside the sink. "Your accomplice appears to be stainless steel. He's discreet." I followed her into the kitchen. Marion's refrigerator stood open, its shelves nearly bare because she had actually cleaned it. Every jar was lined up with military precision. A bottle of salad dressing sat alone on the middle shelf like it had been arrested. "I thought you said cleaning the refrigerator was a cry for help." It was. Nobody came. I'm here now. You're 24 hours late, but luckily I preserved some evidence. She cut 2 slices of lemon cake thick enough to require permits and brought them to the little screened porch off her kitchen. The ceiling fan made a soft clicking sound. Somewhere beyond the hedge, a man was trying to start a leaf blower and losing. Marion took one bite, looked at me, and said, "How bad? I don't know what you mean." "The flowers." They were from Rachel. I assumed that. The card said, "Happy Mother's Day. I love you. Please don't call today." Marion stopped chewing. I waited for outrage. I wanted outrage. I wanted her to slap the table and call Rachel selfish or spoiled or any of the words I had refused to use in my own head. Instead, she swallowed and said, "That's an awful sentence. That's all. What would you like?" "I can throw this plate, but it belonged to my mother." I told her about the photograph. I told her about Martin's trustworthy sweater and Celeste sitting nearest the kitchen. I even told her about the marshmallows because leaving them out felt dishonest. Marion listened with her chin in one hand. When I finished, she said, "And Rachel came over this morning?" "With coffee." "Good coffee?" "Oat milk." So no. She said Celeste needed one day where she didn't feel like the other woman. Celeste isn't the other woman. I pointed that out. "I know, I'm just enjoying being correct." I described the rest of the conversation, including what Rachel had said about me being mature enough not to make Mother's Day about myself. This time Marion muttered something that would have gotten a patron escorted from the library. "Thank you," I said. "You're welcome. My standards are low today." Did she apologize? She apologized for the conversation getting heated. Ah, weather apology. What, like a storm blew in? Nobody caused it. Atmospheric pressure rose between 2 people, and tragically some words fell out. I laughed, then covered my face. Marion waited. I told her I couldn't wait for a furniture delivery, I said through my fingers. "Today, right before I called you. That explains why you look like you escaped through a bathroom window." She was counting on me. Was she? Yes. Had you agreed? No. Then she was counting in a very creative way. I dropped my hands. I usually help her. I know. She'll lose $180 if she has to reschedule. That's a lot of money. It's also less than a dining chair, apparently. I could still go. If I leave now, no. The word came out so firmly I looked at her. Marion pointed her fork at me. "You did not drive across town to eat my emergency cake and then abandon me for furniture. I'm not abandoning you. You absolutely are. I'm being dramatic to make a point. You hate drama. I hate poorly directed drama. This has snacks." I smiled, but my stomach remained tight. What if I'm doing exactly what she says? What if I'm punishing her? Maybe you are a little. I stared at Marion. She lifted one shoulder. "You came here without calling first, which you haven't done in 4 years. You turned off your phone. You're eating cake like it contains instructions. I'd say you're making a point. I thought you were on my side." "I am. That's why I'm not going to tell you every single thing you do is holy." I pushed crumbs around my plate. Marion's voice softened. You trained everybody you know. That is a terrible thing to say. It's also partly true. You taught Rachel that your free time was empty time. You taught her that needing you was the same as asking you. So this is my fault. No. Her card is her fault. The brunch is her fault. But this arrangement between you helped build it. Outside, the leaf blower finally started, roared triumphantly for 3 seconds, and died. Marion looked toward the hedge. That man has been fighting that machine since Gerald Ford. I laughed because she expected me to. Then I said, if I stop being useful, I don't know what's left. There it was, sitting beside the cake like a third guest. Marion set down her fork. She called you every Mother's Day because you waited for repairmen? No, she loves you. I know. She also uses you. I know. Those things can exist in the same person. Unfortunately, God made humans inefficient. My phone stayed off until I returned home after 4. I made it all the way into the kitchen before turning it on. 6 missed calls. 3 from Rachel, 2 from a number I recognized as the furniture company, and 1 from Nate. There were 4 messages. Rachel's first said, "Call me." Her second said, "They are literally outside the house." Her third said, "Never mind." The furniture company had left a polite message about rescheduling. Nate had only said, "Hey Elaine, give me a call when you get this." I stood at the counter, still holding my purse. The roses in the blue pitcher had opened overnight. One had leaned so far sideways its petals brushed the table. I called Nate first. He answered on the second ring. "Hey. Hello. You okay?" "Yes." I tried calling. I had my phone off. A small pause. "That's new. I was with Marion." "Right." Rachel mentioned cake. "Everyone knows about the cake. I don't know what that means." "Neither do I." He cleared his throat. "The chairs got worked out." "Good. I left the office and met them. I'm glad. I had to cancel a meeting." I waited. Nate sighed. "I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty. You put it in an interesting location then. I'm trying to explain why Rachel's upset. I know why she's upset. She feels like you're retaliating. That appears to be the word of the day. I don't think you are." That surprised me enough that I sat down. "But," he continued, because there was always a but waiting behind Nate's patience. The timing makes it hard not to see a connection. There is a connection. "Okay. I realized yesterday that I have made it very easy for Rachel to assume I'll be available whenever she wants. This morning, she assumed it. And you had plans?" "Yes." "With Marion?" "Yes." Another pause. I could hear him deciding whether the truthfulness of my plans had a technical definition. "I didn't know about the card," he said. I looked at the drawer. "What did you know?" "That Rachel wanted a quiet day with her dad and Celeste. She said she'd explain it to you. Did she tell you I agreed?" "No." "Did you think I was invited? I knew it was supposed to be small." "That is not an answer." "No," he said. "I didn't think you were invited." "Did you ask why?" "She told me there was tension." "Did you notice any tension?" "Elaine." "Yesterday. At the table. Did you notice it?" "You weren't there?" "Exactly." His breath came slowly through the phone. "I sent you a message," he said. "I got it. I wanted you to know I was thinking about you." "At 4:20. It was a busy day, so I heard." "That's not fair." "No, it isn't." He was silent. Then he said, "I love you, Elaine. Rachel loves you." Nobody was trying to replace anybody. That sentence does a lot of work for people who left a chair empty. The chair wasn't. He stopped himself. "Look, could we all have dinner Thursday? Neutral ground. No flowers, no parents, no loaded furniture. You are a parent. You know what I mean. I did. I also knew what dinner would require. Rachel would say she was sorry I felt hurt. Nate would translate. I would accept enough blame to make my forgiveness credible, and by dessert we would be discussing where she wanted me to put the new chairs. Not Thursday, I said. When? I don't know. Elaine, space can be good, but too much of it gets dangerous. Dangerous for whom? He didn't answer. After we hung up, I opened the drawer and took out Rachel's card. I carried it to the trash, stood there, then returned it beneath the closed restaurant menu. The following Tuesday waited on my calendar, blank as usual. I picked up my phone and called Marion. Is there a movie playing that you want to see? I asked. Several. Most of them are terrible. Choose one. What day? Tuesday. She went quiet. Then, without making me explain, she said, I'll buy the popcorn. After I hung up, I wrote movie with Marion across the square in blue ink. The letters looked aggressive. I had pressed so hard the last N showed faintly on the Wednesday beneath it. I kept the calendar open on the table as if Rachel might appear and challenge the appointment. Then I felt childish and closed it. 5 minutes later, I opened it again. Thursday came and went without the proposed dinner. Nate did not call to reschedule. Rachel sent me a photograph of the new dining chairs with the message, "Finally." I wrote, "They look nice." She answered with a thumbs up. That tiny yellow hand managed to seem sarcastic. On Friday morning, I went grocery shopping. I bought the bread Rachel liked before realizing she would not be stopping by. I stood in the bakery aisle holding it while a young employee watched me put it into my cart, take it out, then put it back again. Is something wrong with the date? He asked. No. The seal? No. The bread and I are having a personal disagreement. He nodded as if this happened often and backed away. I bought a smaller loaf for myself. It cost more per ounce and tasted worse, which seemed to be the economic structure of living alone. That afternoon, I was trimming the roses when someone knocked. Nate stood on the porch holding my red casserole dish. He had changed out of his work clothes, but still wore the serious brown shoes that made every room look briefly like a business meeting. His dark hair was damp from a shower, and there was a small nick on his chin where he had cut himself shaving. "Returning stolen property," he said. "That dish isn't stolen. Rachel says it's been at our house for 8 months. Then it's extremely borrowed." He smiled. Nate had a good smile when it arrived before he had time to supervise it. "Can I come in? You brought a dish. That earns you 10 minutes. I was hoping for 15. Depends whether it's clean." He turned it over for inspection. "Dishwasher and hand-dried. You may have 12. He followed me to the kitchen and set the casserole dish on the counter. His eyes went to the separated flowers. The lilies had begun browning at the edges on the back porch. The roses were still hanging on, though they had the wide, exhausted look of party guests who had missed their ride home. "Coffee?" I asked. "Sure. I only have regular milk. I'm not Rachel. That's becoming clear." The words slipped out more sharply than I intended. Nate looked down at the counter. "Sorry," I said. "No, you're not, no. But I recognize it was rude. I'll take that." I made coffee while he examined the magnets on my refrigerator. One was a plastic lobster from a trip Rachel and I had taken to Maine when she was 25. She had insisted on driving, then panicked every time the road curved near water. Nate touched the lobster's claw. "She's miserable," he said. "She has new chairs." "Elaine, I'm not enjoying this, if that's what you came to ask. I didn't think you were." "Rachel apparently does. She thinks you're trying to teach her a lesson. I taught her to use a toilet and write thank you notes. I've retired from education." He sat at the kitchen table. I brought the mugs over and took the chair across from him. "She knows the card was badly worded," he said. "Has she said that?" "To me." "Then she should send you flowers." Nate looked toward the blue pitcher. "She thought asking you not to call would be less hurtful than answering and having you hear everyone there." I stared at him. He lifted one hand. "I'm telling you what she thought, not saying it was smart. Why would hearing them have hurt me? Because you weren't invited, so the problem wasn't leaving me out. The problem was the risk that I might notice." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He took a drink of coffee, though it had to be too hot. Nate often used beverages to delay difficult sentences. "I asked about you," he said. "When?" "When Rachel told me the plan." "What did she say?" that she was going to spend time with you separately. She said you'd understand why having everyone together would be awkward. And you believed her. I believed she knew her mother. You know me, too. Yes. Did you believe I'd understand? He rotated his mug slowly between his palms. I believed it wasn't my decision. There was an honesty in that answer I had not expected. It irritated me more than a lie might have. You live in the house, I said. You sat at the table. It was Rachel's family situation. I thought I was your family. You are. Convenient. That's not fair. It keeps coming up, doesn't it? Nate set his mug down. What did you want me to do? Tell my wife she couldn't have her father in our house unless she invited her mother, too? No. Call you behind her back? No. Refuse to eat. You could have said it was wrong. I told her it might hurt you. Might. I wasn't trying to create a larger fight. You chose peace. I chose my marriage. The sentence landed without decoration. I looked at Nate's nicked chin, his careful posture, the wedding ring he rubbed with his thumb when he was anxious. He loved Rachel. It was one of the things I liked best about him, even when that love made him a coward. That answer I understand, I said. He seemed surprised. I'm not saying I admire it. There she is. Who? The woman Rachel says keeps a ledger. I leaned back. Do you think I do? I think you have an excellent memory for injuries. That sounds like yes. I think Rachel has an excellent memory for favors. She remembers everything she's done for someone and forgets what they've done for her. You two are more alike than either of you can tolerate. That was almost profound. I practiced in the car. I smiled despite myself. Nate reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. Come to dinner Sunday. Will Rachel apologize? She wants to move forward. That isn't what I asked. She's still hurt about Tuesday, the furniture delivery, the way you handled it, the way I didn't handle it. You knew she was stuck. She knew I would solve it. You usually do. Yes. He waited, but I did not rescue him from the point. Finally, he said, if she apologizes for the card, will you apologize for Tuesday? An apology with admission requirements is a transaction. It's also how most peace treaties work. We're not countries. You both have borders and a history of disputed territory. I laughed. You did practice. Come Sunday. I'll think about it. He stood, carried his mug to the sink, and rinsed it. Before leaving, he pointed toward the casserole dish. Don't send that back with me. I won't. I mean it. Rachel told me not to return with anything else. She was always competitive. At the door, he kissed my cheek. This time, the kiss landed. She loves you, he said. I know. Then help me out. There it was, the old request in a different shirt. He must have seen something change in my face because he added, that came out wrong. No, I said. It came out all the way. After he left, I put the casserole dish in the cabinet. It no longer fit. At some point, Rachel had returned 2 other dishes, and I had bought a deeper baking pan to replace the red one. I shifted everything twice, pinched my finger, and finally set the dish on top of the refrigerator. Sunday morning, Nate texted, dinner at 6. Rachel had not contacted me. I answered, not tonight, but thank you. At 6:10, Judith called. You couldn't just go eat? She said without saying hello. I ate. You know what I mean. How do you know I was invited? Nate called Larry. Nate called Larry. They play golf. They have played golf twice. Apparently that creates a bond. I looked at my plate. I had made chicken, roasted carrots, and a baked potato. A proper dinner for one, though I had accidentally cooked enough carrots to supply a small institution. Did Nate ask Larry to intervene? No. Nate said you weren't coming, Larry told me, and now I'm calling because I have common sense. Were you issued extra? Mock me all you want. Rachel is waiting for you to make the first move. She sent the last text. A photograph of chairs doesn't count. It counted enough to cost $180. Judith groaned. You are both exhausting. Then stop participating. I can't. I'm your sister. This family is the only ongoing program I'm enrolled in. I moved a carrot through the butter on my plate. She was wrong, Judith said. Completely wrong. The card was cruel and that brunch was thoughtless. I told her so. But she's your daughter. That is the reason it hurt, not the reason it doesn't matter. I didn't say it doesn't matter. You're asking me to behave as if it doesn't. I'm asking you not to turn a wound into a wall. It was a good line. Judith had probably thought of it before dialing. What would you like me to do? I asked. Call her. Say you're sorry things have gotten so ugly. Let her say the same. Go have dinner. And Tuesdays go back to normal. What do Tuesdays have to do with Mother's Day? Everything, apparently. No, Elaine. You're attaching every old irritation to one bad decision. Maybe the bad decision showed me where they were attached. Judith was quiet. Then she said, You like being needed. It was close enough to Marion's observation that I nearly dropped my fork. Did you two have a conference? I haven't spoken to Marion. Everyone seems to know a surprising amount about me this week. I'm serious. Be careful you don't reject the role and then resent Rachel for letting you. That stayed with me after we hung up. Tuesday afternoon, Marion and I saw a terrible romantic comedy in a nearly empty theater. She bought popcorn large enough to qualify as furniture and whispered complaints every time the leading man removed his shirt. Put it back on, she said. You haven't earned that. I laughed so loudly the only other person in the theater turned around. For 2 hours, my phone stayed off in my purse. When the lights came up, I had one message from Rachel. I opened it before we reached the lobby. Nate's parents' anniversary dinner is next Saturday. I'm doing lemon bars and chocolate cake. Can you make them Friday so I can pick them up? Marion watched my face. Emergency? She asked. I read the message again. No hello, no mention of Sunday. Just an order softened by a question mark. No, I said. For the first time, I understood that the answer did not require me to invent somewhere else to be. I typed, I won't be able to make the desserts, but I hope the dinner is lovely. Before I could reconsider, I sent it. Rachel answered before the theater door closed behind us. Why not? I stared at those 2 words. They were not angry on their own. They could have been curious. They could have been concerned. But I had known Rachel long enough to hear the tone punctuation had failed to capture. I'm waiting, Marion said. For what? The building to collapse. You look like you just pushed a red button. I told her I couldn't bake. Did you say couldn't or wouldn't? Couldn't. Why? Because won't sounds hostile. Do you have another reason? I don't need another reason. I meant another reason for saying couldn't. She held the lobby door open while I walked through. The afternoon sun was too bright after the theater, and for a few seconds the parking lot seemed made entirely of glare. My phone chimed again. I already told Barbara you were doing them. Then, it's lemon bars and 1 cake, Mom. Not a royal wedding. I slipped the phone into my purse. You aren't answering? Marion asked. I already answered. That has never stopped you before. I'm growing. You look nauseated. Growth is ugly. We walked to her car because she had insisted on driving. Marion's vehicle was 11 years old and smelled faintly of peppermint and dog, though her dog had been gone for 3 years. She kept threatening to buy something new and then became offended whenever a salesperson agreed. She unlocked the doors but did not get in. Would you have made the desserts if Mother's Day hadn't happened? She asked. Yes. So this is connected. Of course it's connected. Then Rachel isn't completely wrong to see it as a consequence. A consequence isn't the same as a punishment. Explain the difference. I'm not taking something away from her. I'm no longer volunteering something from myself. Marion considered that. Good answer. I didn't prepare it. Even better. We got into the car. I fastened my seatbelt and checked my phone. Rachel had sent, "Forget it. I'll order them." The speed with which she replaced me should have been reassuring. Instead, I pictured bakery boxes on her new dining table and felt useless. Marion started the engine. Did the world end? Not yet. Give it time. We still have to merge. At home, I found a paper grocery bag hanging from my front doorknob. Inside were 4 lemons, 2 sticks of butter, a carton of eggs, and a block of expensive baking chocolate. No note. I carried the bag to the kitchen and set each item on the counter. Rachel had bought the ingredients before asking me. That was the detail that did it. Not because it was cruel. It was worse than cruel. It was ordinary. Somewhere between making her guest list and choosing the napkins, Rachel had walked through a grocery store collecting the things I would need. She had never imagined a version of the week in which I said no. I put the butter and eggs in the refrigerator, the chocolate in the pantry, and the lemons in the ceramic bowl by the window. Then I stood there, thinking about whether accepting groceries constituted an agreement. At 6, I texted her, "You left ingredients here." Her answer came 10 minutes later. "Use them or don't." I didn't. By Thursday, the lemons had become accusatory. I moved them into the refrigerator so I wouldn't have to look at them. That afternoon, Rachel let herself into my house. I was upstairs changing the sheets when I heard the front door open, followed by the soft metallic scrape of the key. I knew it was her because nobody else entered my house like a person arriving late to a meeting. "Mom?" "Upstairs. I'm grabbing the silver cake stand." I pulled the fitted sheet over the corner of the mattress. It snapped loose from the opposite side. "Where is it?" she called. "Hall closet. That's not where it usually is. It's where it is now." Cabinet doors opened and closed below. A moment later, she appeared in my bedroom doorway carrying my silver cake stand under one arm. She wore black pants and a rust-colored blouse, and her hair was pulled into a low knot. It was the way she dressed when she expected to win an argument without raising her voice. "Why is the cake stand in the hall closet?" "Because the cabinet was full." "With what?" "Things." She leaned against the doorframe. "Are you really not making the cake?" "I told you I wasn't. I thought maybe after you cooled down. I was not overheated when I answered." "Fine." She looked at the half-made bed. "Do you need help?" "No. You're going to hurt your back pulling that mattress around." "My back is fine. I'm trying to be nice. You came for a cake stand. I can do 2 things, so can I. I can finish the bed and not bake." Rachel's lips pressed together. "Barbara loves your lemon bars," she said. "I'm glad. She asked for them." "Did she ask me?" "Oh, come on. No, really. Did she? She asked if you were making them. I said yes because you always do. That was your mistake. My mistake was assuming my mother would help me with a family dinner. Your mistake was telling someone I had agreed before asking me. I left you everything. Everything but the choice." She stepped into the room and lowered the cake stand to the dresser. "Do you hear yourself lately?" "Constantly. It's one of the challenges of living alone. You turn every conversation into a slogan. Maybe because plain sentences aren't working. I asked you to bake. You said no because you're angry. Fine. At least admit it. I am angry. Thank you. That does not make the no less valid. It makes it petty." I smoothed the sheet with both palms, though it was still crooked. Rachel glanced toward the hallway. "Did you throw out the flowers?" "The roses lasted until yesterday. The lilies turned. You put them on the porch. They were making the towels smell. I spent a lot of money on those. Then I hope the florist enjoyed it." Her face hardened. "You know, I have apologized." "No. You explained." "I said I was sorry." "You said you were sorry I worried." "Then you said you were sorry the conversation got heated." "I'm sorry, apparently, that I don't apologize according to your exact script." "There is no script. There is always a script with you. You wait for people to say the perfect thing, and if they don't, you save the mistake forever." I looked down at my hands. "You said that before." "Because it's true." "Then maybe stop giving me such memorable material. The instant I said it, I wished I hadn't." Rachel flinched as if I had slapped something out of her hands. "That's awful," she said. "Yes. I came here to get a cake stand and to see whether I had obeyed." "Obeyed? You didn't ask if I had changed my mind. You asked whether I was really not making the cake. I don't know how to talk to you anymore. You could start with hello." She picked up the cake stand. At the bedroom door, she turned back. The dinner is Saturday at 7, in case you decide you want to be part of this family." Then she left. I heard the front door shut but not lock. When I went downstairs, her key was no longer in the lock and the bag of ingredients remained exactly where I had put everything. I locked the door myself. Saturday afternoon, I made the lemon bars. I told myself the lemons would spoil. I told myself I liked lemon bars. I told myself I had invited Judith and Larry for coffee on Sunday, though I had done no such thing. I mixed the crust, pressed it into the pan, and watched butter shine beneath my fingertips. My body knew the recipe without help. 2 cups of flour, half a cup of powdered sugar, 4 eggs for the filling. Rachel used to stand on a chair beside me and steal lemon zest from the grater. The memory arrived so vividly I had to set down the bowl. I did not make the chocolate cake. The bars came out at 4:30. I dusted them with powdered sugar and cut them into neat squares. Then I sat at the table and looked at them. At 5, I put 6 on a plate for myself and wrapped the rest for the freezer. At 5:15, Judith called. "Are you going tonight?" she asked. "I wasn't invited. You just told me Rachel said the dinner was at 7. "How do you know that?" "You told me Thursday." I had forgotten. Rachel was right about my memory being selective. "That wasn't an invitation," I said. "What was it?" "A challenge with a time attached." Judith sighed. "Barbara thinks you canceled the desserts yesterday." I said no on Tuesday. Rachel told her you weren't feeling up to it. That is technically true. I wasn't feeling up to being assigned. She ordered from that bakery on Linden. They make good cake. "Elaine, what do you want me to do? Arrive carrying evidence?" "I want you to stop making everyone choose sides. I haven't asked anyone to choose. You don't have to ask. When 2 people refuse to bend, everybody nearby starts leaning." I looked at the lemon bars cooling on the counter. "Did Rachel tell Barbara about Mother's Day?" I asked. "No." "Did she tell her about the card?" "No." Then nobody is choosing sides. They're choosing between Rachel's version and no version. "Tell your version." "To Nate's mother at her anniversary dinner?" "No, not tonight." "Then when?" Judith did not answer. At 7:15, I ate 2 lemon bars standing at the counter. They were excellent. At 8:40, Rachel posted a photograph in the family group message. Barbara and her husband sat beneath a banner, smiling over a chocolate cake decorated with gold icing. My silver cake stand was visible underneath it. Everyone sent hearts and champagne glasses. I sent a heart. Rachel did not acknowledge it. The next Tuesday, my phone stayed silent through breakfast. It stayed silent while I changed the towels, watered the plants, and wrote a grocery list I did not need. At 11, I called Marion and asked if she wanted lunch. "I thought Tuesday was movie day now," she said. "It can be lunch day. It can be both." Before I left, I carried the red casserole dish down from the top of the refrigerator. I added Rachel's slow cooker from the pantry and a canvas tote containing 2 scarves she had left the previous winter. I placed everything beside the front door. Not to punish her, I told myself, just to give us both fewer reasons to confuse possession with presence. I left the pile by the door while I went to lunch. The casserole dish did not belong there, but it no longer belonged in the cabinet either. I had set it down while trying to decide where to put it, then become irritated by the idea that even a baking dish required emotional placement. Marion picked me up at noon and drove us to a diner where the menus were sticky and the waitress called everyone Han. We ordered sandwiches and split onion rings. I made the lemon bars, I admitted. Marion dipped an onion ring in ketchup. "Did you deliver them?" "No. Did you want to?" "Yes." "Good. How is that good? It means you didn't say no because you've suddenly become a woman who hates baking. You said no because you wanted your choice back. I still made them. For yourself. I ate 8. For yourself, enthusiastically. 6 are in the freezer. Then you ate 2. 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday, 3 yesterday. That's 7. 1 broke. Calories are not released by structural failure. They should be. She pointed the onion ring at me. "What's next?" "Nothing." That sounded ominous. I put a few of Rachel's things by the door. "What things?" "Her slow cooker." 2 scarves, a canvas bag. Why? They're hers. They were hers last week, too. I'm clearing space. You own 4 bedrooms. 3. The 4th is a den. You have space. That isn't the point. Marian put down the onion ring. Then what is? I'm tired of our houses bleeding into each other. Her things are at mine. Mine are at hers. Half the time she comes over, she's looking for something. People leave things in places where they feel at home. She doesn't feel at home. She feels entitled to storage. That sounded prepared. It wasn't. Then you're getting faster. The waitress arrived with our sandwiches and called both plates beautiful. They were tuna melts. I waited until she left. I'm thinking about asking for my key back, I said. Marian's face did not change, but she stopped reaching for her sandwich. You gave her a key for a reason. Emergencies. And? She came in Thursday without knocking. She called out, after she opened the door. Has she done that before? All the time. Did it bother you before? I don't know. That means no. That means I didn't examine it. Marian sighed. I'm going to say something you won't like. You've made that a hobby. A key is not a lemon bar. Once you ask for it back, you're telling her she no longer has automatic access to you. Maybe she shouldn't. Maybe. Just don't pretend it's housekeeping. I looked at my sandwich. What do you think I should do? I think you should decide whether you want privacy or impact. I want privacy. Then ask. If you want impact, put the key on top of the slow cooker with a ribbon. I don't own ribbon. That's all that's preventing you? When I returned home, the pile beside the door looked theatrical. Marian had been right about that. I moved the red casserole dish back to the kitchen and placed it on the counter. Then I carried the slow cooker, scarves, and tote into the spare bedroom. For 10 minutes. Then I carried them back downstairs. I texted Rachel. I have your slow cooker and a few other things here. When would you like to pick them up? She answered an hour later. Keep the slow cooker. You use it more than I do. I don't need it. Donate it. You also have 2 scarves here. Then donate those too. They're nice scarves. Mom, I'm working. The last message stung because it was reasonable. She was working. I had contacted her in the middle of the afternoon about objects she did not want. I set down my phone and felt foolish. At 5:30, the doorbell rang. Rachel stood on the porch. She did not have coffee this time. I came for my extremely urgent scarves. I said whenever you wanted. And I said donate them. I thought you liked them. I do. That's why I left them here. In case I got cold. You live 12 minutes away. Yes, and weather can occur between our houses. I opened the storm door. She entered but did not kiss me. Her gaze landed immediately on the pile. Where's the slow cooker lid? Inside it. Then what's that? She pointed to a glass lid leaning against the wall. That belongs to my Dutch oven. Why is it down here? Because I was reorganizing. Rachel looked at me. Are you cleaning me out? I'm giving back your things. Why? Because they're yours. Stop saying that like it explains anything. She lifted the canvas tote, peered inside, and pulled out a burgundy scarf. I gave you this. No, you left it after Christmas. I left it because you liked it. I thought you forgot it. So you're returning a present because of brunch? I'm returning a scarf because it's yours. You don't even know whose things these are. That one is yours. You just said I gave it to you. No, you said that. Rachel dropped the scarf back into the bag. This is insane. It's clutter. It's 3 objects. Then it shouldn't be difficult to take them home. She crossed her arms. What else? What do you mean? What else are you returning? Should I get a truck? Do you have my prom dress boxed up somewhere? I threw that away years ago. You did not. No, I didn't. She looked toward the kitchen. Where are the folding chairs? In the basement. The Christmas village? Attic? The blue serving bowl? At your house, I think. Do you want it back? It was a wedding present. To you, to me and your father. Then maybe you should cut it in half. I almost smiled. Rachel did not. This is punishment, she said. No, it's separation. Her expression shifted. Separation. Of households. That isn't what you said. It is exactly what I said. You said you wanted fewer reasons for me to come over. I did not. You didn't have to. She lifted the slow cooker with both hands. The cord dragged across the floor. Wait, I said. Rachel stopped. The key suddenly seemed enormous, not the object itself, but the asking. I could feel Marion at the diner telling me to choose between privacy and impact. When you came in Thursday, I said, "You used your key. Yes. I'd like you to knock from now on." She stared at me. Fine. And wait for me to answer. I know how knocking works. I'd like the key back. The slow cooker tilted in her hands. You're taking away my key. I'm asking for it back. Those are the same event. You've been letting yourself in. I have always let myself in. I know, because you gave me a key for emergencies. You gave it to me when you went to Arizona with Judith. That was 7 years ago. And you never asked for it back because I'm your daughter. You came into my house while I was upstairs. I called your name. After you opened the door. Did you think I was robbing you? No. Then what exactly are you afraid of? I took a breath. That my home doesn't feel like mine when you enter it without asking. The slow cooker descended slowly to the floor. Rachel reached into her purse and removed a crowded ring of keys. She worked one loose with her thumbnail. The little brass key had a faded strip of green tape around the top. I remembered putting that tape there. She held it out. I took it. Do you want yours? She asked. My what? The key to our house. I had forgotten I carried one. No, I said too quickly. That isn't necessary. Why should you have automatic access to my home? I don't let myself in, then you don't need it. She held out her hand. I retrieved my purse from the hall table and found her key between my car key and the little plastic card for the grocery store. There was no colored tape on it. Rachel had bought matching silver covers years ago and given me one with a blue flower. I worked it free and placed it in her palm. She closed her fingers around it. There, she said, separate households. Rachel. No, this is good, clear, mature. Don't use my words like weapons. You've been doing it for 3 weeks. She picked up the slow cooker, hooked the tote over one shoulder, and trapped the scarves under her elbow. It would have been funny if her face had not looked so wounded. Let me help you, I said. I can manage. At the door, one scarf slipped and pooled on the floor. We both bent for it, then stopped. Rachel straightened first. I picked it up and laid it over the slow cooker. Is there anything else? She asked. No. Check your ledger. That's enough. It never is. She left. The next morning, Martin called. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but I had spent most of our marriage allowing him to arrive late to difficult conversations. I answered. Hey, Lainey, he said. Nobody called me Lainey anymore except Martin, and he did it only when he wanted the memory of affection to perform present-day work. What can I do for you? Can I call to say hello? You can. You didn't. He chuckled. Still direct, still evasive. All right. Rachel called last night. I assumed she would. She's upset. So am I. She says you took her key away. I asked for my key back. That feels like a large reaction to one missed brunch. One missed brunch. You know what I mean. I wasn't delayed in traffic, Martin. I was specifically excluded and instructed not to call. She was trying to keep things comfortable. For whom? Everyone. I am part of everyone. He sighed. This is getting bigger than it needs to be. Then why are you calling? Because somebody has to be reasonable. And you nominated yourself? I'm trying to help our daughter by telling me to swallow something so she doesn't have to look at it. That's not fair. Did you ask where I was on Mother's Day? I assumed you and Rachel had separate plans. Did you ask? A pause. No. Did you notice the empty chair? There wasn't an empty chair. Exactly. He became quiet. Then he said, This isn't about us. No, it's about what she learned from us. What is that supposed to mean? That peace is when the most accommodating woman in the room stops speaking. Come on, Lainey, don't call me that. He drew a breath. I waited for him to argue. Instead, he said very softly, "All right, Elaine." The full name hurt more than the old one. When the call ended, Rachel's key was still in my hand. I had carried it into the kitchen without noticing. I opened the drawer beside the refrigerator and placed it on top of her Mother's Day card. Then I closed the drawer and listened to the tiny piece of brass slide against the paper. For 3 days, nobody called me. Not Rachel, not Nate, not Martin again. Even Judith disappeared, which meant she was either angry or gathering enough opinions to return with a committee. I kept hearing my phone anyway. In the shower, beneath the vacuum cleaner, once while standing in the yard with the garden hose running. Each time I hurried inside and found the screen blank. On the 4th morning, Judith appeared carrying a pound cake. My family used baked goods the way other families use legal counsel. You could tell the seriousness of a visit by the density of the dessert. "That looks homemade," I said. "It is. What do you want?" "To come inside before my arm falls off." She held the cake higher. I opened the storm door. Judith went straight to the kitchen and placed the cake in the center of the table. She was 5 years younger than I was and had been dyeing her hair the same reddish brown since 1988. She wore gold hoop earrings, white pants no sensible person would choose around chocolate, and the expression of a woman who had rehearsed in traffic. "Coffee?" I asked. "No." "Tea?" "No." "Should I put on protective equipment? Why did you take Rachel's key? She told you. She called me crying. That stopped me." Rachel cried easily over sentimental commercials and injured animals. She did not cry during arguments. Anger she would display in full color. Hurt she treated as classified information. "I asked her not to let herself into my house," I said. "You gave her that key years ago, and I asked for it back yesterday. Do you know what that felt like to her?" "Yes." "No, you know what you wanted it to feel like." I reached for the coffee pot even though she had refused coffee. Doing something with my hands seemed safer. I wanted privacy. You wanted her to know she'd crossed a line. Those things can both be true. At least you admit it. "I'm not on trial, Judith. Nobody said you were. You arrived with evidence." She looked at the pound cake. "That is for you. I don't even like pound cake. You always eat it at my house." "Because you hand it to me. You're impossible." That seems to be the family diagnosis. I poured myself coffee. Judith sat at the table but kept her purse on her shoulder, a detail that announced she could leave at any moment and wanted credit for remaining. "She thinks you're cutting her out of your life," she said. I returned a slow cooker and scarves. She didn't want them, and the keys. The keys were mutual, because she asked for yours after you asked for hers. That sounds mutual. It sounds like a divorce. I laughed once. Judith did not. "This isn't funny," she said. "No, it's familiar. Don't drag Martin into this." I didn't. "You heard the word divorce and made that face." "What face?" "The one where your mouth disappears." I sat across from her. "Did you know about the brunch before Mother's Day?" I asked. She glanced away. "I knew Martin and Celeste were coming. We established that. I knew Barbara was going. Did you know I wasn't?" I suspected. "Judith." "Yes." The word barely cleared her mouth. "When?" "Saturday afternoon. And you didn't call me." Rachel asked me not to interfere. Interfere. She said she was going to handle it. With flowers. I didn't know about the card. But you knew she was excluding me. I told her it would hurt you. What did she say? That she needed one uncomplicated day. I wrapped both hands around my mug. What did you say after that? Judith stared at the table. What did you say? I said you would be hurt, but you'd get over it. The kitchen became very quiet. Outside, a truck backed somewhere down the street, beeping at regular intervals. Judith finally slid her purse off her shoulder and placed it on the floor. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked at the pound cake. A strip of waxed paper still clung to one corner where she had turned it out of the pan. "Why would you say that?" Because you do. I do what? Get over things. That isn't an answer. You survived the divorce. You took care of Mom when she was sick. You worked while Rachel was in college. When Larry had his surgery, you practically ran my house for a month. You're the person who copes, so it was safe to hurt me. No, that's what you're saying. I'm saying I thought you'd be angry and then everyone would move on. Everyone. Judith closed her eyes. I hear it. Do you? Yes. She reached across the table. I moved my mug, not my hand. I should have called you Saturday, she said, or Sunday morning. I told myself it would ruin your day. My day was already ruined. I know. You let me sit there waiting. I know. And then when I called, you acted as if you knew nothing. I was embarrassed. So you protected yourself. Yes. Her answer was immediate. No weather apology, no speech about intention, just yes. Some of the anger went out of me, which was inconvenient because I still needed it. You don't get to come in here and lecture me about the key, I said. Probably not, but you still think I was wrong. I think you were hurt, and now you're making decisions designed to prove you cannot be taken for granted. I cannot be taken for granted. I agree. Then what's the problem? The problem is that Rachel may believe the only choices are taking you for granted or losing you. She's 38. She can imagine a third choice. Can you? That landed harder than I expected. Judith leaned forward. What would a third choice look like, Elaine? Not the old Tuesdays, not keys and automatic favors, but not this either. I don't know. Neither does she. She hasn't tried. She invited you to dinner. Nate invited me. She told you about the anniversary dinner. She asked me to bake for it. Fine. Her efforts have been terrible. Thank you. But they are efforts. No, they're requests. She knows how to need me. She doesn't know how to miss me. Judith's face softened. Maybe she's learning, she said. We cut the pound cake. I ate one slice and confirmed I did not like it. Judith ate two and wrapped a third in a paper towel for Larry. At the door, she hugged me. I remained stiff for half a second too long, then hugged her back. I am sorry, she said into my shoulder. I know, I mean for Saturday, for not calling. I know. Can I keep my key? I pulled away and looked at her. That was a joke, she said quickly. I had forgotten you had one. Her mouth fell open. I laughed first. After a moment, she did too. Rachel broke her silence that evening. Nate needs the folding chairs Saturday. Will you be home around 10? No greeting. No mention of the key. Still, she had asked whether I would be home instead of announcing that Nate would let himself in. Yes, I wrote. I'll have them upstairs. You don't need to carry them. He can get them from the basement. It was the closest thing to concern she had offered since the flowers. I'll have them upstairs, I repeated. There were 6 folding chairs. I had bought them for Rachel's college graduation party and continued storing them through years of holidays, showers, cookouts, and dinners where someone had miscounted. Saturday morning, I carried them up 2 at a time. On the last trip, one chair unfolded halfway and caught me behind the knee. I swore loudly enough to startle myself. At 10:15, Nate arrived in an old gray sweatshirt and jeans. He found me in the entryway rubbing the back of my leg. You carried them, he said. They're chairs, not livestock. I told Rachel I'd get them. She told me too. He examined the 6 chairs leaning against the wall. Beside them sat the red casserole dish, which I still had not found a place for. Is that coming with me? He asked. No. Good. I was given strict instructions. I may put it in the garage. I'll pretend I didn't hear that. We loaded the chairs into his SUV. Nate folded down the rear seats, then stood with one hand on the raised hatch. She didn't send me to talk to you, he said. That sounds like the beginning of talking to me. I just wanted you to know. All right. She thinks the key means you don't trust her. It means I want her to knock. Those feel different to you. They are different. They don't feel different to her. I cannot manage everything she feels. No, but you used to try. The observation was not unkind. That made it harder to dismiss. Nate shifted one chair so its metal leg would not scratch the interior. She keeps checking her phone, he said. For what? You. She knows how to call, so do you. I called for 38 years. Not continuously, I hope. You know what I mean. He smiled, but it faded quickly. She believes if she calls, you'll reject her, he said. She called for the chairs. She knew you'd say yes to that. The truth of it embarrassed me. What does she want? I asked. You to love her. I do. She knows that in theory. I won't go back to pretending nothing happened. I'm not asking you to. You asked me to help you out. I know. I shouldn't have. I looked at him. Nate shoved his hands into the pocket of his sweatshirt. I keep trying to solve this because I don't like what it's doing to her, or to you, but mostly to her, if I'm honest. You're her husband. Exactly. I don't resent you for choosing her. Yes, you do. Only when you act noble about it. He laughed. Then his face became serious again. Celeste asked Rachel for your number. I felt something tighten beneath my ribs. Why? I don't know. She asked Martin first, and he told her to leave it alone. That sounds like Martin. Rachel gave it to her. That does not sound like Rachel. She said if Celeste wanted to understand what she caused, she should hear it directly. What she caused? Nate winced. Those were Rachel's words. The conflict had begun rearranging itself, searching for an easier person to blame. Did Celeste ask for that brunch? I said. I don't know. Did she ask Rachel to exclude me? I don't know. Then Rachel should be careful. I told her that. He closed the hatch. Will you answer if Celeste calls? I haven't decided. Nate kissed my cheek and drove away with the chairs visible through the back window, their legs tangled together. I went inside and moved the casserole dish from the entryway to the garage. At 2:30, an unfamiliar number appeared on my phone. I almost let it ring. Then I thought of Celeste sitting in my chair with Rachel's hand on her shoulder, and of Martin telling her to leave the silence intact because silence had always treated him well. I answered. Elaine? Celeste said. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. Yes. This is Celeste. I think I owe you an apology, but I'm not sure yet what I'm apologizing for. That's an unusual opening, I said. I've had better ones. I remember. She gave a nervous laugh. Martin said I should leave this alone. Martin has always believed silence is neutral. Yes. Well, she paused. I don't. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. I could hear a clock ticking on her end and the low rush of traffic outside my own house. I didn't know you hadn't been invited, Celeste said. What did you think? Rachel told us you had your own Mother's Day plans. With whom? She didn't say. I assumed your sister, or friends. You didn't ask? No. Her answer came without decoration, just as Judith's had. Why not? Because I was having a nice time. I sat down at the kitchen table. Celeste continued before I could answer. That sounds horrible. It sounds honest. It was the first time Rachel had ever hosted me for Mother's Day. She gave me a bracelet. Barbara was kind. Nate made a toast. It felt... She stopped. Like you had a place. Yes. And asking where I was might have complicated that. Yes. I looked at the drawer beside the refrigerator. The key and the card were inside, one piece of brass holding down one piece of paper. What did Rachel tell you about the day? I asked. That she wanted to do something for me because Easter had been difficult. What happened at Easter? My cousin made an ugly remark. Martin told you? Rachel did. Celeste sighed. My cousin has spent most of her life saying ugly things and then acting surprised when anyone remembers. I should have known better than to confide in Rachel while I was upset. That sounds like blaming yourself for trusting her. It's blaming myself for turning one foolish person's opinion into a referendum. I could see why Martin had married her. Celeste had a way of making self-criticism sound like housekeeping. She swept quickly and expected everyone to admire the clean floor. Did you tell Rachel you felt like the other woman in our family? I asked. No. She used those words. I said I sometimes felt like a guest in a family that had already decided who everybody was. That's not entirely different. No, but I never asked her to remove you from the room. I know. You do? I'm beginning to. The clock on her end chimed the quarter hour. Its bells were delicate and irritating. Celeste said, "She called me last night. I heard." She was furious, with me mostly. Why? Because I asked Martin whether anyone had spoken to you. He said you were making a large issue out of the brunch, and I asked why it was an issue if you'd had other plans. What did he say? That I should stay out of it. Very informative. I called Rachel. She told me about the flowers. Not the exact words on the card at first, just that you were hurt because she asked you not to contact her during brunch. Did she explain why? She said she was trying to protect the day. From me, she said from tension. Everyone is very devoted to tension as long as nobody has to name who causes it. Celeste was quiet. Then she said, "I told her the brunch wasn't worth this." I felt an immediate, unreasonable flash of anger. That wasn't your decision. I know. She doesn't get to wound me and then have you declare the event insufficiently valuable. I know that too. Do you? Yes, Elaine. Her voice sharpened for the first time. I'm trying to speak carefully because I know I benefited from what happened, but I am not calling to accept responsibility for every choice Rachel made. There she was. I sat back. That's fair, I said. Thank you. It's still possible for you to have liked my absence. I did. The admission was so clean I had nothing ready for it. Celeste continued. I like you, but I'm uncomfortable around you. You and Martin have a language I'll never understand, even when you're arguing. Rachel watches you. Judith watches you. I become the woman who arrived after all the important things happened. I do not watch you. You notice every time I use the wrong serving spoon. I almost said she did use the wrong serving spoon. Instead, I pressed my lips together. Celeste laughed. I can hear you not saying it. I'm learning restraint. You're doing wonderfully. I laughed too, unwillingly. Then she said, I should have asked where you were. I didn't because I enjoyed being the only version of mother at the table who needed recognition. Barbara was there. Barbara doesn't count. I'm sure she'd love to hear that. I mean, she doesn't feel threatened. She has the confidence of a woman who brings her own tea bags to restaurants. That is true. The laughter faded. What are you apologizing for? I asked. For not asking. For enjoying the answer I had been given because it was convenient, and for allowing that photograph. You allowed it? I suggested it. Of course she had. Celeste loved photographs. She documented restaurant meals before anyone could touch the bread. Rachel sent it to me, I said. I know. I didn't know that then. She thought I'd take it as a nice photograph from a nice day. She was angry when she sent it. That surprised me. How do you know? She'd had more wine than usual. She kept checking her phone. At one point, Nate asked if you had called, and she said, no, because she understands boundaries. I closed my eyes. She was daring you to object, Celeste said. And when you didn't, I think that made her angrier. You seem very sure. I was married before Martin. I recognize a person setting a trap and then resenting the other person for not stepping into it. Martin had told me almost nothing about Celeste's first marriage beyond the fact that it had ended badly. I had not asked. Asking would have made us women with histories instead of opponents arranged around one man. Thank you for calling, I said. I'm not sure I helped. You didn't call to help. No? You called because Martin told you not to. A pause. That was part of it, she admitted. Then we understand each other. Before we hung up, she said, I never wanted to be Rachel's mother. The sentence struck me harder than I expected. She wanted to honor you, I said. I know, it was generous, but I don't want her to expect something back that I can't give just because she bought me a bracelet. What does she expect? I don't know yet. More calls, more visits. She keeps suggesting weekends together. She asked if I'd help redecorate their guest room. That sounds like Rachel. Is she trying to replace you? No. I believed that as I said it. Rachel did not want a replacement. She wanted everyone fixed in the place where they were most useful to her. Celeste could be honored. I could be relied upon. Martin could be forgiven. Nate could keep the peace. "She's trying to arrange us," I said. Celeste exhaled. "That sounds more accurate." An hour later, Rachel called. Her name on the screen sent my pulse into my throat. I answered before I had time to decide whether that was wise. "Did she apologize?" Rachel asked. "Hello to you too. Celeste, I know who you mean." "Did she?" "She apologized for not asking where I was. She made it sound like she had no idea. She said she didn't. She knew the brunch was for her. That's different from knowing I had been told not to call. She knew it would be awkward if you were there." "So did everyone. You don't have to defend her. I'm not. It sounds like you are. I'm trying to answer your question." Rachel's breathing was audible. "She might have been walking. She called Dad first," she said. "She made this whole thing about how uncomfortable she felt and how she never asked me to exclude you. Did she?" "Not in those words." "Rachel." "No, she didn't ask me to exclude you. I was trying to do something kind. I believe you." She stopped moving. The background noise vanished. "You do?" "Yes." "Then why are you acting like I planned some attack?" "Because kindness to Celeste did not require cruelty to me. I wasn't cruel. You wrote, 'Please don't call today.' I was overwhelmed. You were hosting 5 adults who all have complicated relationships. Barbara's relationship with T is the only complicated thing about her. That isn't funny. It is a little." Rachel gave a short breath that was almost a laugh, then caught herself. "Celeste says she doesn't want to come here next month," she said. "Why was she coming next month? I invited her and Dad for a weekend. Did she accept? She said she'd check. Now she says she doesn't want to be in the middle." "I'm sorry. Are you?" "Yes." "You got what you wanted." "What did I want?" "For everyone to see me as awful." "I haven't spoken to everyone. You spoke to Celeste. You spoke to Judith. You spoke to Nate. They spoke to me. You told Judith I was using you. I told Judith you knew how to need me. That's the same thing." "No, it isn't. It is from this side." I looked at the roses. Only 2 remained in the blue pitcher. Their petals had darkened along the edges. "I don't hate you," I said. Rachel was silent. "I'm not trying to remove you from my life. You took my key. I asked you to knock. You gave back ours. You asked for it. You could have said no. So could you. I thought you wanted me to respect your boundary." The word came out with the same contempt she had used for my slogans. "I do. Then congratulations." "Rachel, stop." "Stop what?" "Turning every sentence into proof that I don't love you. You're the one who keeps proving things." Her voice broke on the last word. She went quiet immediately, as if she could erase the sound by refusing to make another. I softened. I felt it happen before I could prevent it. "Come over," I said. "For what?" "To talk. We're talking." "Not like this. What would be different at your house? I could see your face. And keep track of it?" The softness disappeared. "That was unkind," I said. "I learned from the best." "No. You learned from both of us." She knew I meant Martin. The silence changed. "Did you show Nate the card before you sent it?" I asked. "What?" "The florist's card. Did you show him?" "No. Why not? Because it was between us. That's not why. You don't know why. Then tell me." She said nothing. "You knew he would think it was cruel," I said. "You're putting words in my mouth." "Then use your own. I have to go." "Rachel." The call ended. I sat at the table until the room darkened around me. I did not turn on the light. At some point, the refrigerator began humming, stopped, then began again. Near midnight, my phone lit on the bedside table. A message from Rachel. I knew Nate would tell me not to send that card. A second message followed. I sent it anyway because I was angry that you were the person whose feelings I had to manage. I read the sentence until the screen went black. Then I touched it awake and read it again. I did not answer that night. I wrote several responses. You never had to manage my feelings. You managed me instead. You were angry at me for existing where you wanted an empty space. Each one sounded either too polished or too cruel. At 2 in the morning, I finally sent, "Thank you for telling me the truth." Rachel did not reply. The next day, I removed the 2 dying roses from the blue pitcher. Their petals came loose in my hands and scattered across the table. I gathered them with a damp paper towel, poured out the cloudy water, and put the pitcher back in the cabinet. The empty table looked better. It also looked empty. Nate returned the folding chairs on Sunday. He carried them to the basement without asking me to help and brought the silver cake stand back upstairs. "Rachel washed it," he said. "I assumed you hadn't. I know better than to touch silver. It's stainless steel. That makes my restraint even more impressive." He put it on the counter, then glanced at me. She showed me the messages. "Which ones?" "The ones she sent you." "What did you say?" "That I wished she'd shown me the card." I waited. And I would have told her not to send it. "Did you tell her it was cruel?" "I told her it was designed to hurt you. That was more precise than cruel." It also made Rachel's choice harder to excuse. "What did she say?" "That she wanted one day without managing your reaction. You know I did not ask to attend." "I know. I didn't even know the brunch existed. I know that too." I leaned against the counter. "Then what reaction was she managing?" "The reaction she expected when you found out. She created the thing she was afraid I'd react to." "Yes." Nate looked tired. There were shadows beneath his eyes and a small stain on the front of his shirt. "She thinks she's the villain now," he said. "I don't. She does." "That sounds exhausting." "It is. For you. For both of us." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm sorry," I said. "Are you?" "Yes. But you're not going to call her. She can call me. She believes the next move is yours." "Why?" "Because she admitted she was angry. That wasn't an apology." "No, it was true." I looked toward the drawer. I thanked her for it. I saw. What else should I have said? Nate gave a tired smile. I practiced 3 answers in the car. None survived the kitchen. That happens here. At the door, he hesitated. "Can I hug you without it becoming evidence?" "Depends which side submits it." He hugged me anyway. Rachel and I did not speak for 11 days. I knew the exact number because, despite all my objections, I did keep track. On the 12th day, she called while I was at the grocery store. "Where do you keep the recipe for the garlic dressing?" she asked. "Hello, Rachel." "Hi. Which garlic dressing?" "The one you make for pasta salad, in the green recipe box." I looked. "Why are you in my recipe box?" A pause. "The blue serving bowl is here. The recipe might be tucked inside it. My recipe box is not inside the bowl. I looked in my recipe box." "You said the green one." "We have the same box. You gave it to me. I gave you the yellow one." "Mom, 2 cloves of garlic, red wine vinegar, Dijon mustard, olive oil, salt, pepper, and the smallest amount of sugar." "How much vinegar?" "1/4 cup. Oil? 1/2 cup? Then taste it." "That's not the recipe." "It is the recipe. You always make more than that, then double it." She exhaled. "Fine. Thank you." "Who are you feeding?" "Nate's work group." "That sounds nice." "It isn't. One of them says circle back during normal conversations." I laughed. Rachel did too. For 10 seconds, we sounded like ourselves. Then she said, "I should let you shop." "All right, bye, goodbye." I stood beside the canned tomatoes holding my phone. I wanted to call her back and ask what else she was serving. I wanted to tell her not to overdress the pasta and to save some parsley for the top. I wanted to offer to make it. Instead, I put the phone in my purse and bought my tomatoes. The summer settled into a different shape. Tuesdays no longer belonged to anyone by default. Marion and I saw movies, tried a restaurant where every dish arrived on a wooden board, and spent one afternoon at an antique market arguing over a lamp neither of us wanted. Some Tuesdays, I stayed home on purpose. Being free felt different when I had chosen it. Judith began stopping by without pound cake. The first time, she stood outside after ringing the bell and held up both hands. "Look," she said through the storm door. "No key. Your medal is in the mail. We still argued about Rachel, but less efficiently. Judith had stopped trying to carry messages between us. When I asked what Rachel had said at Sunday dinner, Judith replied, "If she wants you to know, she can tell you." "That sounds very healthy," I said. "I hate it." "Me too." Marian persuaded me to attend a monthly supper she had with several people from the library. I had been invited before and always declined because the dinners were held on Tuesdays. The first one took place at Gail Turner's house. Gail had retired from the reference desk and become the kind of person who served chilled soup in glasses. Her husband Phil believed every conversation could be improved by a map. Before dessert, he had drawn the route of an upcoming road trip on a napkin and tried to convince us that Nebraska was misunderstood. "I understand Nebraska," Marian said. "It's long." Gail invited me back. I accepted before checking my calendar. In July, Rachel invited me to a cookout with 4 days' notice. "Dad and Celeste won't be there," she added. I read the message twice. "Are they not welcome?" I wrote. "They're busy." "Then why mention them? So you know it won't be uncomfortable." "For whom?" The 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. "Do you want to come or not?" I already had plans to attend a concert in the park with Marian and Gail. 6 months earlier, I would have canceled them. A cookout with Rachel was family. A concert with friends was optional. I typed, "I have plans, but thank you for inviting me." Her answer was immediate. "Of course you do," I called her. "You're angry because I have plans?" I asked when she answered. "I'm not angry," you typed angrily. "That is something only you would say. What does 'of course you do' mean? It means you're busy. It means you think I made up plans to reject you. Did you?" "No. Fine. I'm going to a concert with Marian and Gail." "Who is Gail?" "We work together." "I've never heard you mention Gail. That doesn't mean she doesn't exist." "I didn't say that. I would like to come another time. There's always another time with you now." "That is unfair." "Is it? You couldn't come to dinner. You couldn't make the anniversary desserts. You couldn't come to the cookout. You told me about the cookout 4 days ago. I thought you liked being spontaneous. I like spontaneous lunch. I don't like spontaneous obligation. It's not an obligation. It's an invitation. Then I'm allowed to decline." Rachel went quiet. "Yes," she said finally, "you're allowed." She made the words sound like something issued by a court. "Ask me earlier next time," I said. "I shouldn't have to make an appointment with my mother." "No, you have to make plans with me." "What's the difference?" "Whether you think my time already belongs to you." She hung up. I went to the concert. The music was too loud, the grass was damp through our blankets, and Gail brought a pasta salad containing so much raw onion that people gave us space. I enjoyed myself. I also checked my phone 14 times. Rachel and I spoke occasionally after that, but our conversations remained narrow. She called with recipes, questions about Martin's habits, and once to ask where I had bought the curtains in my guest room. I answered. I did not offer more than she requested. She did not ask how I was. I did not tell her. In August, I hosted the library group at my house. I spent 2 days cleaning, then pretended I had not. Marian arrived early with wine and found me moving the same vase between the mantel and the dining table. "Your house is not applying for approval," she said. "It might be." "From whom?" I put the vase back on the mantel. We ate roast chicken, potatoes, and green beans. Phil brought a map of Tuscany for reasons no one understood. Judith came without Larry, who had discovered a golf tournament on television and claimed prior commitment. At 10:30, I realized I had gone 4 hours without checking my phone. That frightened me almost as much as it pleased me. The dinners continued. Sometimes at Gail's, sometimes at Marian's, twice at mine. I learned that Phil cheated at cards, Gail hated cinnamon, and Marian became sentimental after exactly 2 glasses of wine. They learned that I was not merely Rachel's mother, Martin's former wife, or Judith's dependable sister. By October, the card from Mother's Day was still in the kitchen drawer. I considered throwing it out. Instead, I moved the takeout menus beneath it and replaced the batteries that had expired. Rachel's key remained on top. One Thursday afternoon, she texted, "Do you still have the Christmas village in your attic?" "Yes." I need it for the mantle this year. Nate can pick it up Sunday. I looked at the calendar. The library group was coming to dinner Sunday. He can come at 4, I wrote. He's working. I'll come. I carried the boxes down Saturday morning. There were 5 of them. The ceramic church, 8 houses, a train station, miniature trees, and enough artificial snow to contaminate the attic forever. On Sunday, Marion arrived at 3 with 2 bottles of wine and a pie she claimed had developed a cosmetic defect. Gail and Phil came at 4:30, though dinner was not until 6. Judith arrived next carrying green beans and complaining that Larry's golf tournament had entered its 7th or possibly 19th hour. I was in the kitchen seasoning a roast when the doorbell rang. Rachel was 40 minutes early. I wiped my hands and opened the door. She looked past me at the coats in the hallway, the wine on the table, and Marion laughing in my kitchen. I thought dinner was at 6, she said. It is. Her eyes moved to the 5 boxes stacked neatly beside the stairs, then back to me. You're having people over? She asked. Yes. Who? People. I can see that. Marion leaned around the kitchen doorway. That's what we are now. People. Rachel gave her a quick smile. Hi, Marion. Hello, stranger. Judith called from the dining room. Is that Rachel? No, Rachel said. It's another woman asking about Christmas decorations. Judith appeared beside Marion with a bundle of napkins in her arms. She looked from Rachel to me, sensed the temperature, and immediately became fascinated by the napkins. I'm folding, she announced. So I see, I said. They won't fold themselves. That's rarely been disputed. Marion touched Judith's elbow. Come help me damage the pie. They withdrew without looking as if they were withdrawing, which was an advanced skill usually found in librarians and women with sisters. Rachel stepped inside. I closed the storm door behind her. You didn't mention dinner, she said. You didn't ask. Her mouth tightened. I was coming for boxes. I didn't realize I needed an itinerary. You don't. Apparently I do if I want to know anything about your life. That was so close to what I had wanted her to notice that I had no satisfying response. I pointed toward the stairs. The village is there. All 5 boxes. She walked to the stack and read the labels I had written years earlier. Church plus trees. Houses 1, 4, houses 5, 8. Train station. Snow plus people. You kept the original boxes, she said. They fit. I assumed they were all thrown together. You think I stored ceramic houses loose in the attic? I don't know what you do anymore. Her voice was light, but her eyes had begun moving around the room, taking inventory. The extra wine glasses, the serving platter on the dining table, Gail's scarf draped over a chair, Phil's map of Tuscany already spread beside the butter dish. She looked into the kitchen, where Marion was cutting a pie into pieces of wildly different size, while Judith objected. Who else is here? Gail and Phil. Who are Gail and Phil? People from the library. Are they the ones you went to the concert with? Gail was. Rachel nodded as if confirming a suspicion. I bent to lift the box marked train station. She reached for it at the same time. I can do it, she said. So can I. Right. You've established that. I let go. She carried the box outside to her car. It was a small sedan, not Nate's SUV. When she opened the trunk, I could see 2 bags of potting soil, an umbrella, and a reusable grocery bag filled with shoes. You won't fit all 5, I said. I'll make 2 trips. You can come back after dinner. I didn't realize I was being scheduled around your social life. Rachel, stop. She shoved the umbrella sideways. I'm not doing anything. You are making every detail sound like evidence. You've been doing that since May. I looked toward the house. Through the window, I could see Judith setting the table. Gail had joined Marion in the pie operation. Their laughter reached us faintly through the glass. I have guests, I said. I noticed. I don't want to fight in the driveway. Then don't. She returned to the house and lifted the box marked Houses 1, 4. I picked up Snow plus people and followed her. We fit 3 boxes into the trunk and back seat. The remaining 2 stayed beside the stairs. I'll come back later, she said. You're welcome to stay for dinner. The invitation left my mouth too late. We both knew it. Rachel looked at me. Is there enough? Yes. Did you set a place for me? No. I didn't know you were coming at 6. I said I was coming Sunday. You didn't say when until this morning. She nodded. Of course. That is not rejection. That is arithmetic. I don't want your friends to have to make room for me. They would. You'd like that, wouldn't you? What? Everyone's shifting around, showing me how gracious they are. Marian making one of her jokes. Judith watching to make sure I don't upset you. That is not what would happen. It's already happening. She got into the car and closed the door. I stood on the walkway as she backed out. She did not wave. When I returned to the kitchen, all 4 adults looked intensely occupied. Phil held a corkscrew but no bottle. Gail had opened the oven and was staring into it. Marian was arranging pie slices by size. Judith had folded one napkin into a shape resembling a dead bird. Everything all right? Marian asked. No. Need help? No. Want wine? Yes. She poured without commentary. Dinner was good. I know because everyone told me. The roast was tender. The potatoes crisped at the edges. Gail's green beans had almonds, despite Judith having also brought green beans and spending the first 10 minutes pretending not to mind. Phil described a highway in southern Italy with such intensity that the rest of us became temporarily invested in regional traffic patterns. Marian told a story about accidentally joining a memorial service on video because she clicked the wrong link. Judith drank 2 glasses of wine and confessed she had once hidden Larry's golf shoes in the garage because he claimed he couldn't attend a cousin's wedding without them. I laughed. I passed plates. I refilled glasses. Every set of headlights that crossed the front window pulled part of my attention toward the door. Rachel did not return until 9:30. The others had gone. Judith offered to stay, but I told her not to. Marian squeezed my hand before leaving and said, "Call me tomorrow, whether it went well or badly." What if nothing happens? That will be badly. I was washing the roasting pan when the doorbell rang. Rachel stood outside wearing a different expression. Not softer, exactly. Tired enough that some of the anger had loosened. "I came for the rest," she said. "They're still there." She entered after I opened the door. She waited while I closed it, a small detail I noticed and wished I hadn't. The house still smelled of roast chicken, coffee, and Gail's cinnamon-free apple pie. Half-empty wine glasses stood on the dining table. A deck of cards remained spread beside Phil's map. Rachel touched the back of one chair. "Did you have fun?" "Yes." "Good." "I did." I said good. "You made it sound surprising." "I'm not surprised." I dried my hands. Rachel looked at the table again. "How often do you do this?" "Once a month. Sometimes more." "Since when?" "August. And you never told me. We haven't had that kind of conversation." "What kind?" "The kind where you ask what I'm doing." Her eyes met mine. "I ask you things. You ask whether I know a recipe or where something is. I asked you to the cookout 4 days before. People make plans on 4 days' notice. I had plans already, with Gail and Marian." "Right. Marian. You say her name as if she kidnapped me. She seems to be present every time you're unavailable. She is present because I accepted her invitations." Rachel sat in one of the dining chairs. "I thought you were doing all this to make a point," she said. "All what?" "Movies, dinners, giving things back, saying no." The key was a point. Her head lifted. "I told Marian I wanted privacy," I continued. "She asked whether I wanted privacy or impact. I wanted both. So you did mean to hurt me. I meant for you to understand that entering my house without asking was part of a larger problem. You could have said that. I tried. No, you took the key. You had already decided my words were slogans." Rachel looked down at her hands. "I cried in the car," she said. "I know. Judith told you?" "Yes." "She wasn't supposed to. She came with pound cake. She had to explain the density." Rachel laughed once, then pressed her lips together. I sat across from her. "I'm sorry the key hurt you," I said. "I'm not sorry I asked you to knock. That sounds like one of my apologies." "It does. So it's terrible." It's incomplete." She rubbed her thumb across a scratch in the table. "Did you enjoy saying no to me?" she asked. The easiest answer was no. "Once or twice," I said. Her eyes filled. "I'm not proud of that." "But you did." "Yes." At first, every no felt like making you carry one bag you had been handing me for years. I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't either, not clearly. You liked being needed. I did. Then how was I supposed to know when needing you became wrong? It didn't become wrong. Assuming became wrong. You never complained. I complained constantly. You joked. That was how I complained. How was I supposed to know which jokes were jokes? That's fair. She looked startled by the answer. "I helped build this," I said. "I kept Tuesdays open without telling you what that cost. I said yes before you finished asking. Then I resented you for believing me. I didn't make you do those things." "No." "Then you don't get to put all of it on me. I'm not. It feels like you are." "From that side." She recognized her own phrase and looked away. The kitchen clock ticked. In the living room, the heat came on with a low metallic knock. "What did you think would happen after the flowers?" I asked. "I thought you'd be angry, and then you'd call Monday. I'd explain. You'd say you didn't like it, but you understood. Why? Because you always understand. That is not the same as agreeing. I know that now. Did you send the photograph to hurt me?" Rachel's face changed. "Celeste said you were angry. She shouldn't have told you that. Was she right?" Rachel stood and walked into the kitchen. She stopped beside the counter where the roasting pan waited in the sink. "I kept checking my phone," she said. "I thought you would call anyway. You told me not to." "I know. You expected me to ignore the card?" "I expected you to be you." "What does that mean?" "To decide I didn't mean it." The words made something inside me go still. "You wanted me to rescue you from what you had written. I didn't know I wanted that until you didn't." "And the photograph?" She wrapped her arms around herself. "Partly," she said. "Partly what?" "Partly I wanted you to see that the day had gone well without you." The honesty hurt, but not in the same helpless way the card had. This pain had edges I could hold. "Why were you so angry with me?" I asked. Rachel's eyes moved toward the dark window. Dad was happy. Celeste was grateful. Barbara was impressed. Nate kept telling me everything looked beautiful. I had made this whole perfect day and I still felt guilty because you were home alone. That guilt was not something I did to you. I know. Do you? Yes. She turned toward me. I was angry because you were the one person I thought I could disappoint and still have exactly where I left you. There it was. Not an apology. Not yet. But the truth had finally entered the room without flowers around it. I pulled out the chair beside me. Rachel did not sit. "I don't want exactly what we had," I said. "I know. I also don't want this." She looked at the boxes beside the stairs. "What do you want?" "I want you to call when you don't need a recipe." "What would we talk about?" The question was so sincere it almost broke me. "Anything. That's not helpful. It's all I have tonight." Rachel wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. "I should take the boxes." "Yes." We carried them to her car together. Neither of us mentioned the key. After the last box was loaded, she stood with the driver's door open. "Are you free Tuesday?" she asked. "For what?" "I don't know." "Call me Monday," I said. "Ask me then." She nodded. It was not yes. It was not no. For once, it was enough. Rachel called at 6:40 Monday evening. I answered on the third ring, which was long enough to prove I had a life, but not long enough to suggest I had fallen. "Are you free tomorrow?" she asked. "What time? Lunch? Noon? I have plans with Marion at 3. I didn't ask about 3. I'm telling you because lunch cannot become the whole afternoon. A small pause. "All right," she said. "Noon to 2? 1:30? Noon to 1:30. That works. Do you want to meet at DeLuca's?" DeLuca's was halfway between our houses and served salads large enough to contain weather. "Yes." "Okay. Neither of us hung up. Was there something else? I asked. No. You're sure? Yes. All right. Mom? Yes? How was the rest of the dinner? The question was so carefully ordinary, I had to look away from the phone. It was nice, I said. Phil tried to teach us a card game and cheated at it. Is Phil the map man? He has many qualities, but yes. Did you have pie? 2 kinds. What kinds? We talked for 11 minutes about pie. At DeLuca's the next day, Rachel arrived early. I knew because she had already secured a booth and removed her coat when I came in. She stood to hug me, then seemed unsure whether we were hugging. I solved it by leaning forward. The hug was brief and bony. Still, it landed. She had ordered water for both of us. I didn't order food, she said quickly. Good. I remember you hate when people choose for you. I don't hate it. You sent back an omelet because someone added cheese. I had specifically requested no cheese. It was one time. It was an egg full of betrayal. She smiled. We opened our menus, though we both knew what we wanted. Rachel always ordered the chopped salad and removed the olives. I always ordered the turkey sandwich and complained that the bread was too thick while eating all of it. When the waitress came, Rachel ordered the chopped salad. With no olives, she said. You know the olives are listed, I told her after the waitress left. I keep hoping they'll reconsider. We talked about Nate's work, Judith's green beans, and the fact that Barbara had begun taking watercolor classes and now painted every birthday card herself. They're all barns, Rachel said. Maybe she feels strongly about barns. She painted a barn for Nate's birthday. Men like structures. Do they? No. At 1:20, she checked the time. You need to go, she said. I have 10 minutes. You said lunch couldn't become the whole afternoon. It hasn't. I know, I'm respecting the boundary. You can respect it without narrating. Her eyes narrowed. Then I smiled. Rachel shook her head. You're enjoying this. A little. We left separately. She did not ask when we would do it again. 3 weeks later, she called on a Thursday and said, Would you like to have lunch next Tuesday? No preamble, no test, just an invitation. We began meeting once a month. Sometimes Rachel suggested it. Sometimes I did. Once neither of us called, and the month passed. The old Elaine would have interpreted that silence as evidence of decline. The new Elaine, or at least the temporarily improved Elaine, allowed February to arrive without convening an investigation. Our conversations wandered into riskier territory by degrees. Rachel told me Celeste had declined another invitation to visit. She said she and Dad already have plans, Rachel said, tearing a dinner roll into pieces. They might. They don't. How do you know? Dad told me. That was unhelpful of him. He thinks I should stop pushing. Do you? She rolled a piece of bread between her fingers. I thought if I showed Celeste she belonged, she would want to belong more. You gave affection and expected a return. I invited her to spend a weekend, not donate an organ. People have different tolerances. She calls me once every 6 weeks. She sends a birthday card. She doesn't want to redecorate my guest room or go away together. Do you want to go away with her? I thought I did. Why? Rachel looked embarrassed, because then Mother's Day would have meant something. I waited. I don't mean it didn't mean anything, she said. I mean I made it into this proof that she was important to me. I thought she'd understand it as an invitation to be closer. Did you ask whether she wanted that? No. You keep arranging people. Celeste told you that. I said it to Celeste. Oh. Rachel stared down at the bread. Is that what I did to you? She asked. Yes. With Tuesdays. With more than Tuesdays. She nodded slowly. I don't know how not to, she said. Ask. I do ask. You ask after deciding the answer. That is still technically asking. So is a restaurant menu, but it doesn't become surprised when I choose the turkey. That comparison fell apart, halfway through. She smiled, but her eyes remained serious. At Thanksgiving, Rachel invited me 5 weeks in advance. The invitation came by phone, not text. It'll be us, Barbara, Judith, and Larry, and possibly Dad and Celeste, she said. Would you like to come? Yes. Would you make the sweet potatoes, with or without marshmallows? Without. I'm not an animal. Then yes. If you'd rather not cook, that's okay. I said yes, I'm confirming. You're narrating again. I'm new. Martin and Celeste decided not to come. Martin called me the Tuesday before Thanksgiving and said they wanted a quiet holiday at home. That sounds nice, I said. I hope you don't think we're avoiding you. I didn't until you said that. He laughed uneasily. After a pause, he said, Rachel tells me you two are doing better. We're trying. She seems more like herself. She is herself. You know what I mean? I do. He called me Elaine when we hung up. On Thanksgiving, Rachel seated me at the far end of the table, nowhere near the kitchen. At first, I assumed she had made a performance of it. Then Barbara announced that she needed the nearest chair because of her knee, and I realized the seating arrangement had been dictated by anatomy. Rachel cooked too many dishes and forgot to warm the rolls. Nate carved the turkey while Barbara gave him instructions he ignored. Larry brought a bottle of wine nobody liked and drank most of it himself. Judith placed my sweet potatoes beside her green beans and whispered, They look threatened. After dinner, I stood to clear plates. Rachel touched my wrist. You don't have to. I know. The words came out more sharply than I intended. She withdrew her hand. I'm going to help, I said. I'm not surrendering a principle. All right. We cleaned the kitchen together. She washed. I dried. Neither of us assigned the work symbolic meaning. That may have been the most peaceful part. In December, Rachel called one morning while I was getting ready to meet Gail. Are you busy? She asked. Yes. Okay, I'll call later. What do you need? The plumber is coming sometime between 12 and 4. I have to go into the office. I can't today. I figured. She sounded disappointed but not injured. Can Nate do it? I asked. He's in Richmond. What will you do? Ask if they can come Friday or pay the stupid cancellation fee. I'm sorry. It's fine. We said goodbye. That evening, she called again. I answered cautiously. Did you solve the plumber? Yes. Friday morning. Good. There was a pause. I'm not calling about that, she said. What are you calling about? I saw a woman at the office wearing a sweater with birds sewn all over it, and it reminded me of the Christmas vest you used to wear. I never owned a vest with birds. It had cardinals. Those were poinsettias. They had beaks. They were leaves. Mom, your leaves had eyes. For 20 minutes, we argued about a vest I had donated in 2006. When we hung up, I cried. Not much. I stood beside the kitchen sink and let the tears come without turning them into a verdict. Grief and relief had become difficult to distinguish. Christmas was not perfect. Rachel became tense when Martin and Celeste arrived late. Celeste brought a sweet potato casserole with marshmallows, and I said nothing. She caught my eye across the kitchen and smiled because she knew exactly what I was not saying. Rachel gave me a new calendar. It had watercolor flowers and wide squares for appointments. So you can write down all your plans, she said. Is this passive-aggressive? A little. I appreciate the honesty. I gave her a set of serving spoons because she used the wrong ones. Celeste laughed for almost a minute. The kitchen drawer remained unchanged through winter. The card softened at the fold from the times I took it out and read it. Rachel's key stayed on top. I considered returning it. Once, I even carried it to lunch in my purse. But handing it back would have felt like awarding a prize for good behavior, and I did not want our relationship reduced to that either. The key could wait until it was only a key. By March, Rachel sometimes called on Tuesdays and sometimes didn't. She asked about my dinners. She learned Gail's name without attaching it to the concert and sent Phil a road atlas she found while cleaning Nate's office. Phil loved it. I said no to favors twice. Both times, Rachel survived. I said yes to others. Once I waited for a rug delivery because I was free and wanted to. Rachel brought lunch and remained after the truck left. She did not behave as if one yes had restored permanent service. Near the end of April, she called while I was planting herbs in pots on the back porch. What are you doing on Mother's Day? She asked. The question startled me enough that I dropped a packet of basil seeds. Mother's Day was 3 weeks away. I had already made plans with Marion and Judith for a garden tour. followed by lunch at a place Judith had chosen because the dessert menu occupied an entire page. "I'm going out with Marion and Judith," I said. Rachel was quiet. The old silence returned so quickly I could almost see us inside it. The cookout, the key, the boxes beside the stairs. Then she asked, "Are you free another time that weekend?" I sat back on my heels, dirt on both gloves. "Yes," I said. "Breakfast Saturday. At your house or mine?" "Mine." "What time?" 9. "All right." Another pause. "Should I bring anything?" she asked. "Just yourself." This time she understood that it was an invitation, not an assignment. At 8:50 Saturday morning, I checked the front window. Rachel was not there. At 8:53, I adjusted the plates on the kitchen table. At 8:55, I moved the jam 3 inches to the left. At 8:57, I told myself I had not spent a year building a fuller life just to stand behind a curtain waiting for one person's car. At 8:59, the doorbell rang. Rachel stood on the porch wearing jeans, a pale blue shirt, and no coat. Her hands were empty. "You didn't bring anything," I said. Her face fell. "You told me not to." "I know. I'm pleased." "That isn't how you sounded. I need to work on my greetings." "Yes." She waited. I realized I was blocking the doorway and stepped aside. Rachel entered, then stopped while I closed the storm door. She'd been doing that since October. Every time, I noticed. Every time I tried not to turn the noticing into a ceremony. "Happy Mother's Day," she said. "It's tomorrow. I'm getting ahead." "That's new. I can leave." "No, you can't. I made too much food." The kitchen table held scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, strawberries, and a coffee cake I had baked the night before. I had tried to make a modest breakfast and accidentally produced a buffet. Rachel looked at it. "Were you expecting the library group? I don't know how much you eat now. You saw me last month. You had a salad. I'm not a migrating animal, Mom." I panicked. She laughed. It was the first sound in the room that did not feel carefully placed. We sat. Rachel poured coffee for both of us and added milk to mine without asking. Then she froze with the carton in her hand. "You still take milk?" "Yes. I know you do. You're allowed to know things." "I'm trying to distinguish knowing from assuming. You're going to exhaust yourself. I already have." She filled her plate and took one bite of egg. "These are cold. You were a minute late. I was exactly on time. You rang the bell at 8:59. I respect that. You were watching. I happened to be near the window. Behind the curtain?" The curtain needed attention. She smiled but did not push. For several minutes we talked about the garden tour. Judith had studied the brochure and decided we needed to arrive before the crowds. Marion had studied the weather and decided anyone afraid of rain lacked character. Rachel asked what I was wearing, then caught herself before recommending shoes. "You can tell me if you think my shoes are wrong," I said. "I'm trying not to manage you. That's not management. Management would be calling tonight to confirm I changed them. You wore sandals to a garden after 3 days of rain once, and learned. You ruined the sandals. They were ugly. You loved them. I was wrong twice." She looked down at her coffee. "Mom? Yes?" Why did we start the rain story? I spread jam on my toast, though I no longer wanted it. "You started it. When?" "The first Mother's Day after you moved into that apartment over the dry cleaner. That place smelled like hot dust. It smelled like chemicals. That too. You called at 9 in the morning and asked what time you were born. Why? You were having a conversation with your roommates about whether people's personalities matched the time of day they entered the world." Rachel stared at me. "That sounds scientifically solid. You had been out late. That sounds more scientifically solid. I told you it was shortly after 3 in the afternoon, during the worst of the storm. Then you asked me to tell you everything. You never told me that part. You never asked why before." She rested her elbows on the table. "Tell me." So I did. I told her about the rain hammering the hospital windows hard enough to make the glass tremble. About Martin leaving my overnight bag in the hallway at home and returning with the suitcase he had packed for a business trip. "What was in it?" Rachel asked. 2 dress shirts, a tie, 3 pairs of socks, and a book about sales. That's useful during labor. He also brought me a college sweatshirt from his car. The famous sweatshirt. It smelled like French fries. You always leave that out. I wanted the story to have dignity. I told her about the lights going out for 7 minutes. The emergency lamps had come on, weak and yellow, and one of the nurses had joked that the hospital had lowered the lighting for atmosphere. You arrived furious, I said. Red face, black hair, both fists closed. The doctor said you had excellent lungs. I still do. You screamed until they put you against me. Then you stopped. So suddenly, everyone laughed. Rachel's eyes filled. I continued before the tears could become the center of the story. Your father stood beside the bed, wearing one wet shoe because he'd stepped into a puddle in the parking lot. He kept saying, "Look what we did," as if he had personally organized the weather. That sounds like Dad. It does. What did you say? I said, "Somebody find me pants." Rachel laughed through her tears. I got up for more coffee, although neither of us needed it. When I returned to the table, she had wiped her face. "Every year," she said, "I thought you told that story because you liked it." I do like it. Even the wet shoe? Especially the wet shoe. I thought it was just ours. It is. I gave it up for a brunch. The room changed. I set down the coffee pot. Rachel folded and unfolded the corner of her napkin. "I practiced something," she said. "In the car? Last night, in bed, in the shower this morning. That seems excessive. It kept sounding wrong. Then don't perform it." "What if I need to?" "Why?" "Because if I just start talking, I'll explain. Then I'll defend part of the explanation. Then you'll hear the defense instead of the apology." She knew herself. "All right," I said. Rachel placed both hands flat on the table. "I'm sorry I excluded you on Mother's Day. I'm sorry I sent flowers instead of calling. And I'm sorry I wrote that card. I knew the words would hurt you. I chose them because I was angry before you had even done anything." Her voice shook, but she did not look away. I wanted Dad to be happy. I wanted Celeste to feel chosen. I wanted Barbara to think I could host this beautiful, complicated family without anybody becoming uncomfortable. And I wanted Nate to see me pull it off. The napkins were very nice. "Mom, sorry." She drew a breath. "I didn't invite you because your presence would have made the whole thing honest. Dad would have watched you. Celeste would have watched Dad watching you. I would have watched everybody. It was easier to remove the one person I believed would still love me afterward." My eyes burned. Rachel continued. "The flowers were supposed to make the exclusion look thoughtful. I spent more because I wanted the price to prove I loved you. Then I told you not to call because I didn't want to hear what I had done while I was enjoying it." She looked toward the cabinet where I had put away the blue picture months before. "And I sent the photograph because you obeyed me," she said. "I was angry that you took me seriously. I wanted you to see that I had a good day without you. I wanted you to call and make me feel guilty so I could blame the guilt on you." The refrigerator hummed behind us. "I'm sorry," she said again. "Not that you worried, not that things got heated. I'm sorry I made you disappear and expected you to help me pretend it was kindness. For months, I had imagined the apology I wanted. Sometimes it was longer than this one. Sometimes Rachel cried more. In the ugliest versions, she suffered enough beforehand to make my forgiveness feel valuable. Now that the apology sat in front of me, it did not repair the year. It did not return the hours I had spent waiting beside the phone or erase the sound of her key scraping in my front door. It did something smaller. It made the hurt stop arguing for its own existence. "Thank you," I said. Rachel's mouth trembled. "Is that all? What else do you want?" "I don't know. Do you want me to say it's fine?" "No." "Good. It wasn't. I know. I forgive you." Her eyes closed. "But forgiveness isn't the old Tuesdays." She opened them again. "I know that too." "Do you?" "Yes." She wiped beneath one eye. "I miss them." "So do I. I miss calling you and knowing you'd answer. You can call. It isn't the same. No. She nodded. I keep thinking I should have noticed what it cost you, she said. I should have told you before I handed you a bill. You didn't hand me a bill. You emptied a storage unit onto the floor. It was one slow cooker and scarves. You didn't want them. I wanted them at your house. I know that now. She smiled faintly. I'm sorry about the key, I said. Her smile disappeared. I'm not sorry I asked for it back, I continued. I'm sorry I used the moment to make you feel what I had felt. Marion was right. I wanted privacy and impact. Did it work? Yes. Then I guess congratulations. That is exactly what you said. I know. We sat with that. I haven't changed the locks, I said. Rachel looked up. I didn't think you had. Your key is in the kitchen drawer. Why are you telling me? Because I don't want it to become some test you don't know you're taking. Are you giving it back? Not today. A year earlier, that answer would have begun a fight. Rachel picked up her coffee. Okay, I don't want the key to be a prize for behaving well, I understand, and I don't want keeping it to be a punishment. Then what happens? One day it will just be a key again. She nodded slowly. Will you tell me when? Yes. Okay. The coffee cake sat between us, mostly untouched. I cut 2 slices and placed one on her plate. You know, Rachel said, I was prepared for this to be more dramatic. I can throw the coffee pot. That belonged to Grandma. Then absolutely not. She took a bite of cake. This is good. I know. Did Marion help? I stared at her. I'm sorry, that was offensive. Deeply. We finished breakfast. Rachel told me about Barbara's barn paintings, which had expanded into covered bridges. She told me Nate had purchased a storage rack for the garage and assembled it upside down. I told her Gail and Phil were planning a trip to Italy based entirely on one of Phil's maps, and Marion had asked whether the Italian government had been warned. Nothing in the conversation needed solving. At 10:40, Rachel looked at the clock. You have things to do, she said. So do you. I can stay and clean up. You don't have to, I know. She began carrying plates to the sink. I watched her rinse them and load the dishwasher. She placed the bowls on the top rack. You finally trained Nate, I said. I gave up. We have separate dishwasher philosophies. That is the secret of marriage. You should write a book. I'd rather eat marshmallows. When the kitchen was clean, Rachel picked up her purse. At the door, she hugged me. Not the uncertain lean from DeLuca's. A full embrace, her cheek against mine, her arms firm around my back. Happy Mother's Day, she whispered. Thank you. She pulled away. Have fun tomorrow. I intend to. Take a jacket, Rachel. It might rain. I own weather information. Right. She opened the storm door, then paused. I love you, she said. I love you too. She walked to her car. I did not stand in the doorway until she drove away. I closed the door, returned to the kitchen, and put the leftover coffee cake beneath a glass cover. The next morning at 9, my phone rang. I was pinning up my hair while Judith waited in the driveway and honked every 30 seconds for reasons known only to her. Rachel's name filled the screen. I answered. I know you have plans, she said. I'm not trying to keep you. Judith is trying to alert the county. I can hear her. The horn sounded again. I just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day on the actual day. You said it yesterday. I know. You can say it again. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Thank you. I love you. I love you too. There was a brief silence. Go, Rachel said. You'll miss the garden. I'll call you this week. Only if you want to. I want to. We hung up. I picked up my purse and passed through the kitchen. For a moment I stood beside the drawer, then I opened it. The card was still there, softened along the fold. Happy Mother's Day. I love you. Please don't call today. Rachel's key rested on top. I left both where they were and closed the drawer. Outside, Marion sat in the passenger seat wearing a rain hat large enough for agricultural use. Judith leaned across the car and pushed open the back door. It's going to pour, she said. Apparently I was born for it. I climbed in, shut the door, and let them take me somewhere I had chosen to go.